Half a month had passed, and the dust from the Phoenix Bridge incident still hadn't fully settled. Lin Yang's video of him saving his father and stopping the runaway bus was still circulating online, earning him labels like Divine Forecaster and Lifesaver. At Yangshu Capital's headquarters, however, a quieter kind of forecasting battle had just ended, and with spectacular results. In the president's office, Hu Qian sat behind a wide desk, fingers tapping the wood as a small, unreadable expression of excitement and admiration hovered on her face. The large screen before her streamed real-time headlines from the international shipping market. Breaking: Panama Canal suspended for 2 weeks due to severe drought. Global maritime artery blocked. Spot shipping freight skyrockets. Asia-US West Coast route up 120% in 1 week. Outside the office, the mood was electric. Employees stared at the flashing data and headlines, faces a mixture of disbelief and elation. Oh my God, it really closed, and freight jumped 120%. A young analyst covered his mouth and gasped. President Hu! President Hu! We made a fortune. The manager of the maritime project burst into the office, voice shaking with excitement. Hu Qian rose and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the city below with a small, satisfied smile. She could clearly remember the message she'd received 2 weeks earlier, on the evening of July 1st, from Lin Yang in Phoenix Village. The message had been calm, but unmistakably urgent. Hu Qian, act immediately. Use all available funds. Contact China Shipping Group and lease every suitable ocean-going cargo ship they can provide within the next 3 months, especially vessels capable of transiting the Panama Canal, under long-term charter terms. The sooner, the better. At any cost. At the time, the order had left much of the company baffled. Yangshu Capital was an investment firm, not a shipping company. Why lease a fleet of cargo ships? Were they getting into shipping? The move seemed utterly outside their core business. Even Hu Qian had doubts as she executed the instruction, and the financial risk was real. Yet she had almost blind faith in Lin Yang, earned from a string of previous miraculously precise operations. That night, she personally led a team into intensive negotiations with China Shipping Group. Leveraging Yangshu Capital's growing clout, Hu Qian's negotiation skills, and China Shipping Group's appetite for stable, long-term charters, the two sides reached agreement in just 2 days. Yangshu locked up a significant portion of China Shipping Group's idle capacity for the next 3 months at favorable rates. Industry insiders privately laughed at the time, calling it throwing money away and amateurish bravado. Then, on July 15th, the Panama Canal Authority's suspension announcement hit like a bombshell. The global supply chain lurched. Rerouting via the Cape of Good Hope more than doubled voyage distances and dramatically increased time and costs. Available capacity evaporated, and the freight market shot upward. With panic peaking and rates soaring, Hu Qian issued a second decisive instruction: immediately recharter all the ships we've leased on the spot market. Get the best prices possible. Do it fast. The order was crisp and absolute. The business team, already on standby, sprang into action. A few calls rippled through the market and the news spread. Yangshu Capital held large, reliable shipping capacity at a time when one ship was worth its weight in gold. Negotiations went unusually smoothly. Operators were scrambling for capacity and nearly met Yangshu's asking prices. Within days, recharter contracts were signed one after another, and money poured into the company like a high tide. When the final profit report was laid before Hu Qian, even she had to draw a breath. 53,760,000. It was almost money conjured from thin air, the direct result of Lin Yang's foresight and the decisive ship chartering operation 2 weeks earlier. When Hu Qian announced the figure and the successful operation at an internal meeting, the room fell silent for a moment, then burst into applause and astonished exclamations. Oh my God, over 50 million. President Hu, that's incredible. How did you know? This is like turning stone into gold. Facing the team's admiration, Hu Qian smiled and shook her head. Her glance swept across the room and settled on the figure who was far away in Phoenix Village. I'm not divine, she said. I simply carried out Mr. Lin's instructions faithfully. All the strategy, timing, and targets were set by Mr. Lin. We were just the executors. Silence fell again, deeper this time, as the realization sank in. It was Mr. Lin. I knew it. Who else could think this far ahead? Unbelievable. It's like he can see the future. From the company's founding, the unfinished building, Chungguang Farm, the Seaview Villa, to these cargo ships, Mr. Lin's investments never miss. Hu Qian watched the energized team, nodded with satisfaction, and then moved on to the next task. Past successes have proven Mr. Lin's precision, she said. Our next goal is clear. Go all out to acquire Qinghai Salt Lake Development Company. It's a crucial part of Mr. Lin's plan. Are you confident? Yes, came the chorus, voices loud and sure. The team's faith in Lin Yang and their fighting spirit swelled. Mission accomplished. Thousands of miles away, in Qinghai Salt Lake Development Company's executive conference room, the atmosphere was the opposite. Relaxed, complacent, celebratory. A large projection displayed the company's recent financials and the explosive growth in visitors to the Salt Lake scenic area. Look at these numbers, Chairman Wang Hongtao crowed, face beaming as he pointed at the screen. Last year's net profit doubled. This year's first half is even stronger. Ticket sales, merchandise, brand partnerships, we've already outdone last year's total revenue in just 6 months. At this rate, we'll double again, maybe even more. Executives around the table grinned and agreed. Who would have thought this old salt field would go viral? It's a gift from heaven. No, a gift of salt from heaven. Our mirror of the sky is a national hotspot now. Its value is incalculable. At that point, the vice president responsible for external cooperation spoke up. By the way, Chairman Wang, an investment company called Yangshu Capital, has reached out several times recently. They want to buy our development and scenic area operating rights. The price they quoted, it's not small. Wang Hongtao laughed as if the idea itself were ludicrous. He leaned back in his leather chair, looked around at his colleagues, and waved the notion away. Acquire us? Yangshu Capital? Dream on. He sipped his tea, his disdain obvious. What do they know? Do they think this is still some broken salt field that only made industrial salt? This is a goose that lays golden eggs. The potential for further development, high-end hotels, cultural tourism, is only beginning. This value can't be casually appraised. He set down his cup and dismissed them brusquely. Tell them to stop wasting our time. Don't even mention their offer again. Even if they offered 10 billion, we wouldn't sell. Hand over our golden goose? Not while I, Wang Hongtao, am in charge. Meeting adjourned. The conference room filled with relaxed laughter and agreement. Everyone was basking in the dividends the Salt Lake had brought and the promise of even greater gains, treating Yangshu Capital's acquisition attempt as an overreaching interruption. Half a month of frantic preparation had finally come to an end. The day of Lin Jianguo's combined birthday and housewarming banquet had arrived. Yang Chexia and Lin Yang were exhausted from overseeing every detail, but Lin Jianguo couldn't stop grinning as he watched the courtyard come alive. This was exactly the kind of warm, local celebration he'd wanted. No five-star hotel could match the homely bustle of this place. The Lin family's villa, like a palace in the middle of the village, had become the heart of Phoenix Village. Colorful festive tents covered the vast yard, and 88 banquet tables stretched from the front yard all the way to the back garden, a spectacle the village had never seen. Almost every household sent someone to help. The men hauled tables and chairs, carried ingredients, and kept order. The women washed and prepared vegetables, served dishes, and greeted guests. Children darted and played between the tables. Everyone's faces shone with collective pride, as if the whole village were celebrating. The head chef team from Xiangxi Tribe, the county's top restaurant, was in charge of the kitchen, and Lin Yang's generosity was obvious in the quality of the ingredients. Fresh produce and seafood had been shipped straight from the provincial capital, Xing City. As one impressive dish after another was paraded out by uniformed waitstaff, bursts of astonishment rose under the tents. Oh my goodness, that lobster! It must be a sea spirit! A burly man's eyes nearly popped out as he pointed at the bright red Australian lobster on an ice platter. Its claws were thick as a man's forearm, one lobster per table, commanding the center of the spread and giving off the clean, sweet scent of the sea. Look at this abalone. My word, doesn't that look like a millstone from the ocean? An old woman at the next table squealed as she stared at the plump South African abalones in a clay pot, each the size of a palm and bathed in rich sauce. Her mouth watered. The abalones we used to eat are like fingernails next to this. The Lin family is insane with their generosity. Steamed king crab piled high like a small mountain. A vibrant East Star grouper glistened on another platter. Top-grade wagyu with snowflake marbling filled a sizzling pan with fragrance. Each dish that arrived sparked another round of cheers and exclamations. Soft-packed Chunghwa cigarettes were laid out on every table. Anyone could help themselves. Bottles of Moutet and Lafitte were opened one after another as waiters refilled glasses without pause, treating these famed wines like everyday refreshment. The banquets lasted 3 days, and by the main meal on the final midday, the atmosphere had reached a fever pitch. After several rounds of drinking and feasting, guests were flushed and euphoric, their conversations revolving entirely around the unprecedented luxury on display and the Lin family's staggering wealth. Wasn't it worth it? Damn right it was worth it. A man, face flushed and mouth full of lobster meat, slapped the table. This lobster, so springy, sweet and fresh. One bite of that abalone and your mouth is full of richness, fragrant. I've never had such a feast in my life. You can say that again, an elderly man replied, lifting a small sip of mutai and closing his eyes in delight. Who could ever dream of this? Chunghwa to smoke whenever you want, mutai to drink like water. If it weren't for the Lin family, this old bag of bones might never taste mutai in my lifetime. Truly an eye-opener. With a display like this, even the county magistrate would have to stand aside, someone muttered, admiring the remaining high-end morsels on the table. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river. Our ancestors knew what they were talking about. An elder who had watched Lin Jiangguo grow up sighed as he took in the ornate, lacquered villa, remembering the Lin family's old, drafty house. They used to be one of the poorest families in the village. Look at them now. I don't think many families in the county can compete. Exactly, a chorus of voices agreed. They say this house was modeled after the grandest mansions in Xing City. Just building it cost. Someone made a dramatic gesture with his fingers and murmured, "Over 100 million. Gasps spread around the tables. You couldn't earn that in a dozen lifetimes. And it didn't stop there, another added. That nearly bankrupt construction company in the county, they came back to life after getting the Lin Villa project. They had so much work they couldn't keep up. This kid Lin Yang, where he shines, others follow. Lin Jiangguo and Yang Kexia are blessed. They raised a filial, capable son, people said reverently, glancing at Lin Yang and his parents as the older guests clustered around them. At that moment, Aunt Wang, the village's notorious chatterbox, flashed a mischievous smile and loudly addressed Zhao Dashan at the same table. "Hey, Brother Dashan, I remember last year under the big tree at the entrance. You weren't singing Lin Yang's praises like this, were you? What did you say then?" She cleared her throat and mimicked Zhao's earlier tone. "Humph. What good did studying do him? So what if he graduated from a prestigious university, working for others in some big city, earning that paltry dead-end salary, slaving away, not as comfortable as my boy, who only finished junior high and drives a ride-hailing car. He's making 10 to 20,000 a month easy. Didn't you say that?" Zhao Dashan's face went beet red. His chopsticks clattered to the table. He shot up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, stomping and waving his hands. "Oh my God, Aunt Wang, please, please, I was drunk. Ancient history. That was 800 years ago. I was talking nonsense after getting cold. It was all rubbish. Please don't bring it up." Sweat beaded on his brow as he glared toward Lin Yang, desperate to make sure his past words hadn't reached the ears of the village's new power center. The people around the tables roared with laughter at his embarrassment. The joke about Zhao's offhand remark perfectly highlighted how much the Lin family's status had changed. As laughter died down, a young man, eyes bright with hope, leaned forward and called out, "Hey, have you heard? Brother Lin Yang set up a company for his parents. Looks like some kind of agricultural company, and I heard they'll be hiring soon." The words hit like a spark in dry grass. "Really? Lin Yang started a company? That's huge." "No doubt about it," another agreed. "If Lin Yang opens a company, it'll make money." "When are they hiring? I'll be first in line," someone else said, patting his chest. The old man who'd raved about Mutai perked up, newly tempted. "Count me in. I'll sign up too. You can't go wrong following Lin Yang." Yes, 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 put me down. Lin Yang's amazing. The benefits must be great. A middle-aged woman chimed. Eager faces echoed the sentiment. The banquet and the promise of material reward had washed away any earlier ridicule about Lin Yang renting barren land behind the village. People forgot how they'd called him crazy from studying, wasting money, or fooling around. Now all that mattered was how to climb aboard the Lin family's rising fortunes. Busy with the longevity feast and the housewarming, Lin Yang was in no hurry to return to Xing City. The agricultural company he'd set up downstream of the Tuojiang River hadn't gotten fully underway yet. He planned to tidy things up and hand the operation to his parents before going back. But in the middle of the celebrations, he received a call from Lin Bian. At an auction in Xing City, an ancient Taoist manual of guiding techniques, a book that Liang Dingen, the county's richest man, had bought for 1 billion, had finally been opened. Inside a hidden layer was an item related to the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure. Lin Bian had been extremely cautious, entrusting the item to people he trusted, and the process had taken time. The Taiping treasure was said to be vast, the kind of wealth amassed when the Taiping armies plundered half of Great Xia's riches. Once discovered, it could instantly turn someone's net worth upside down. If word got out, it would draw a storm of attention, so Lin Bian had handled everything quietly and with care. As soon as he had results, he contacted Lin Yang. Lin Yang knew that with his current resources, it would be hard to extract such a treasure without anyone noticing. Still, he wanted it, and he wanted it under his own control. There was safety in holding the key himself. So he decided to put the agricultural business on hold for a few days and go to Xing City to secure the item first. Before leaving, he sent a message to Chen Qingqing. "I'll be back in Xing City in the next 2 days. Still need me to taste dishes?" Chen Qingqing's reply came almost instantly, brimming with excitement. "He's finally back. My confession plan can continue." Early the next morning after Lin Bian's call, Lin Yang jumped out of bed, washed quickly, and drove toward Xing City. Anxiety gnawed at him the whole way. His mind kept replaying the passages from the Taoist guiding manual that supposedly held the secret to the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure. The roads seemed to stretch forever, and every traffic light felt like a test of patience. By late afternoon, he finally pulled into Qingshuitang Antique Market. The market was as busy as ever, rows of shops glittering with artifacts, pedestrians threading through the stalls, and the constant murmur of bargaining. Lin Yang headed straight for Shangchun House. When he walked in, he found Lin Bian behind the counter, absorbed in an old book. At the sight of Lin Yang, Lin Bian set it down and rose with a welcoming smile. "Lin Yang, you finally made it," he said. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Uncle Lin," Lin Yang replied. Lin Bian waved him off and reached under the counter for a small, finely crafted wooden box. He opened it carefully and revealed the ancient Taoist manual. "We've already removed the material that was hidden in the book's interleaves," he explained. "We didn't read anything off the removed pages. After extracting it, my friend restored the book." Lin Yang took the book and inspected it. It looked untouched, no sign of tampering. He marveled at the restoration. "Uncle Lin, thank you so much," he said earnestly. "This restoration is incredible. I can't tell it was ever opened." Lin Bian smiled. "A friend of mine specializes in restoring old books. He did it as a favor." Lin Yang asked how much he owed. Lin Bian waved his hand and refused payment, saying his friend did it free of charge. He added that while the Taoist guiding techniques wouldn't grant immortality, they were valuable for strengthening the body and prolonging life. Lin Yang felt the book's value deepen in his mind and thanked Lin Bian again. Touched by the help, Lin Yang decided he wanted to show his gratitude. He went to his car, retrieved 2 items from the trunk, a painting titled Gray Tower and an enameled bowl called the Poppy Poem Bowl, and brought them back into Shangchun House, placing them on the counter. "Please, have a look at these," he said, hopeful. Lin Bian's eyes lit up. He put on gloves, examined the painting closely, then turned the bowl over and over. Surprise widened on his face. "These are exceptional," he said. "The brushwork on this painting, it's in the style of Master Fan Shan. And the workmanship of the enameled poppy poem bowl is superb, clearly the hand of a renowned craftsman." Hearing this, Lin Yang inwardly rejoiced. "How much do you think they're worth together?" he asked. Lin Bian considered them a moment. At least 150 million, he said. Of course, the final price will depend on the market and the buyer. Lin Yang nodded, not surprised. Would you help me sell them? Charge your usual commission. Think of it as a small token of my thanks. Lin Bian accepted without hesitation. He understood the gesture. Even a normal commission on such pieces could mean tens of millions, and Lin Yang was showing his gratitude in the only way he could. All right, Lin Bian said. I'll find the right buyers and aim for a good price. Grateful, Lin Yang left Xiangchen House feeling lighter than he had in days. Not only had he recovered the manual that might lead to the Taiping treasure, but the 2 items he'd picked up at the South Sea Island waste station were finally being put to use. Driving home, he passed Wuyi Square and almost missed a turn because of what he saw. The entire square was a river of flowers, layered in color and arranged into elaborate patterns. A giant floral wall wound like a brilliant ribbon around the plaza. Rare blooms, fiery reds, sunset pinks, snow-white petals released a heady scent that drew bees and butterflies in their midst. Lin Yang slowed, thinking it must be a festival, but when he stopped at a light, he saw large screens at each corner broadcasting a live confession declaration. Passers-by craned their necks to watch. 2 young women near his car were whispering excitedly. Did you hear? It's Chen Zhengguo's daughter making a confession, one said. Really? The richest man's daughter? How much must have gone into this? The other replied, eyes wide. I heard it cost over 10 million just for the setup, the first said. So flashy. That could buy a luxury villa, the other murmured. Only someone like that could afford it. Lin Yang let the conversation wash over him. He remembered his own school days, simple, sincere confessions scribbled on notes or whispered at the sports field. This display was different, extravagant, public, but the courage behind it was the same. He admired the young woman's willingness to make her feelings known, despite the spectacle. Seeing Chen Guo's name sparked another memory. Chen Zhengguo was a prominent businessman in Xing City, someone who had helped Lin Yang on his entrepreneurial path with financial backing and valuable introductions at crucial moments. Lin Yang had never forgotten that assistance. If the confession works out and they marry, I should go to the wedding banquet, he thought. I need to thank Mr. Chen properly and give them my sincere blessings. He hoped, as the crowd hoped, that the public declaration would lead to happiness, and he drove on, picturing the square filled with flowers and 2 people about to begin a new chapter together. Lin Yang's eyes kept returning to the dreamlike sea of flowers in May 1st Square, a spectacle paid for and staged with full-on romantic intent. Traffic crawled past, and the giant screen at the intersection flashed rotating love notes and confessions, making pedestrians stop and take pictures. Chen Zhengguo's daughter, she really knows how to make a show, he thought, impressed by the boldness of whatever heiress was behind it. He felt a little admiration for the courage of the unseen woman who'd built an entire scene to confess her feelings. I wonder who the lucky guy is, he mused. The light turned green. Lin Yang eased the accelerator and the car glided forward. A call popped up on the central control screen. Chen Qingqing. He swiped to answer. Chen Qingqing's voice came through clear, with a faint tremor of nerves beneath it. Hello, Lin Yang. You should be in Xing City by now. Are you free tonight? I just got in. I'm near May 1st Square. He nodded at the flowers outside the window despite her not seeing it. That's great, her voice brightened. How about coming to my new restaurant tonight? It's on the 11th floor of Guojin Center. It just opened, and I really need your honest opinion. Lin Yang thought about the ancient book he'd tucked in the trunk and his plan to go home and study, but there was no pressing urgency. He had promised Chen Qingqing, and he had no other plans for the evening. Besides, she was an acquaintance. It made sense to support her opening. Sure. Guojin Center? I just passed it. I'll turn around and head over now. That's perfect. I'll wait for you at the entrance. She sounded delighted. He made a U-turn at the next intersection and guided his silver-gray sedan into the underground parking of Guojin Center. Taking the elevator to the 11th floor, he stepped into a scent that mixed fine ingredients and careful presentation. The restaurant's name was elegant, Qinglanju. Chen Qingqing stood at the entrance in a tailored off-white dress that suited her, gentle but lively. Her face brightened when she saw him. There was a brilliant smile and the slightest flicker of awkwardness in her eyes. "Lin Yang, you're finally here," she said, voice rising with relief. Lin Yang laughed and teased, pointing to her slightly clasped hands. "We're old friends. Why are you so nervous today?" "No way," she protested, cheeks coloring as she tried to hide it with a smile. Come in. I've saved you a great seat." Inside, the restaurant balanced modern simplicity and Eastern calm, soft lighting, quiet elegance. She led him to a window booth. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass was May 1st Square, even more spectacular from here. The flower walls, lines of lights, giant heart patterns, and the 4 big screens cycling through confessions made the square look like a stage set for someone's big moment. "This spot, it's incredible," Lin Yang said, genuinely impressed. "Best seat in the house to watch that $1 million confession." "I saved it for you," Chen Qingqing said, smiling with a conspiratorial curl of her lips. "Sit. I'll go arrange the dishes. I've ordered everything. Just tell me if you like them." "Host's orders," he replied, and she rose to speak with the kitchen. A string of waiters brought the dishes in one by one, announcing their names with professional courtesy. "Sir, the first dish, heartfelt potato puree." A white porcelain bowl held a heart of velvety purple sweet potato puree, garnished with gold leaf and edible petals. Next, lovesick red bean cup. A crystal cup contained silky red bean paste with a few plump beans floating on top. Sweet talk duet arrived as 2 honey-glazed char siu with contrasting flavors. Winged connection mushrooms were 2 roasted rare mushrooms arranged like birds in flight. The last was love-locked knot, 2 glutinous pastries braided into a lover's knot and wrapped in fine sugar threads. Hearing the loving names, seeing Chen Qingqing's flushed cheeks and bright eyes, and with the dramatic backdrop outside, Lin Yang suddenly put it together and laughed. He looked at her with a teasing grin. "Qingqing, is this a couple's theme restaurant? All the dishes sound like love confessions. And you picked a table with front row seats to the show outside?" Her face went crimson, like an apple. She stamped a tiny, embarrassed foot and tried to keep a composed smile. "You dense man, I'm confessing to you," she burst out. "I ordered these dishes. I chose this spot. Even the square decorations, it's all for you. Do you really think I opened a theme restaurant for this?" She took a steadying breath, forcing a helpless, almost sly smile without directly answering him. Under the table, she thumbed at her phone, sending a message she'd prepped earlier. "Butler, Plan B activated." Message sent. Chen Qingqing looked up, still flushed but newly determined, her eyes bright with mischief and resolve. She glanced toward the glittering lights beyond the glass and said to Lin Yang, "A theme restaurant? Maybe. But the real show is only just beginning." "Wow," Lin Yang murmured, following her gaze. A gasp rose from the square. Even up on the 11th floor, it cut through the restaurant. Lin Yang leaned forward and peered out the window in the direction of the sound. Lin Yang peered curiously through the floor-to-ceiling window at May 1st Square below. What had been, until moments ago, only a static sea of flowers and a light screen was suddenly filling with thousands of stars, points of colored light rising from every corner of Xing City. They swarmed upward like a trained hive or an inverted galaxy, converging with precise choreography above the square. A low, technological hum rolled through the night, and a chorus of astonished gasps broke out. "Oh my God! What is that?" "Drones! So many drones! Look, they're making shapes!" Tens of thousands of drones hovered in the sky, each light blinking chaotically at first, then synchronizing. The dots connected into smooth lines, shadows built into 3-dimensional planes. A human face slowly emerged, enormous against the darkness. A young man with sword-like brows, keen eyes, a high nose, and a mouth that hinted at quiet resolve. The contrast of light and shadow gave it depth and a striking, masculine presence, as if a god were looking down on the city. The crowd erupted. "Wow, oh my goodness, he's so handsome. This modeling, the lighting and shadows, incredible. Must be the richest daughter's taste. Who is that? One face can be that impactful. Man, I'm jealous. To be proposed to like that by the richest girl. Did he save the galaxy in a past life? Quick, take pictures. This is tonight's headline for sure." Phones bloomed like constellations across the square. Inside the restaurant, Lin Yang paused, slightly distracted. That face, why did it feel familiar? He touched the outline of his own jaw without thinking and smiled faintly. He looked back at Chen Qingqing across the table. As expected of the richest heiress in Xing City, even a confession can make this kind of spectacle. The scale, the creativity, that lucky guy. He didn't get to finish. The face dissolved like sand in the wind, scattering into a million points. The drones reformed, reorganized, and then 5 massive characters blazed across the night. Lin Yang, I like you. The letters were so brilliant they swallowed the square's neon, the most commanding presence in the entire skyline. Lin Yang's smile froze. He blinked twice, as if to confirm what he was seeing. Lin Yang, likes me? He turned his eyes away from the lighted proclamation and met Chen Qing's face. She sat upright, the earlier enigmatic smile gone. Her expression was a storm of nerves, hope, and fierce determination. Her cheeks were flushed as if she were about to burst, but her gaze was steady and blazing, fixed entirely on him, as if shouting without sound, "Yes, it's idiot." A rush of realization swept him. The grand, public confession, the couple-themed dishes on the menu, the specially reserved VIP seats, and now the citywide message outside the window. All the clues clicked into place. The richest daughter I'd never met, the heiress of Chen Zhengguo, that woman was the very Chen Qingqing sitting across from him, the little rich friend he'd thought of as an acquaintance. No wonder she could afford to open such a top-tier restaurant at such a young age. He had admired the bravado of that mystery heiress. It was just standing across from him. He tamped down the surprise and let mischief rise. Seeing her so nervously brave, he decided to tease her a little longer. He put on an exaggeratedly puzzled, innocent look, pointed at the letters in the sky, then at himself, and said in a tone half confused, half foolish, Lin Yang? Me? That can't be right, can it? He scratched his head and looked sincerely at her. Qingqing, look at this mess. It must be a mistaken identity. I don't know the city's richest daughter at all. How could someone like her know an ordinary guy like me? This has to be a mix-up. Ling, Chen Qingqing snapped. All the nervousness, anticipation, shyness, and the frustration of being met with deliberate ignorance detonated at once. She stood so suddenly that her hands slammed onto the white tablecloth. Leaning forward, eyes wide with anger and abandon, her blush crept up past her ears and down her neck. No more ladylike restraint, no more staged romance. Nothing mattered now except catching the man who was pretending not to see what was clear. The restaurant's soft music, the murmur of other diners, even the commotion outside fell away. Every eye turned to the window table. Chen Qingqing drew a breath and with everything in her, said loudly and clearly, voice trembling but unwavering, "Lin Yang, I like you. Will you be with me or not?" Her words landed like stones in glass. Waiters froze. Nearby patrons froze mid-bite. Even the drone-lit declaration seemed to fade into the background. The whole room condensed to her blazing eyes and that single, undeniable confession. The feigned confusion on Lin Yang's face dissolved instantly. His features softened into a broad smile, and something mischievous and genuine shone in his expression. He looked at the heiress before him, furious, beautiful, utterly vulnerable, and felt the moment shift. He knew with quiet certainty that it was time to stop pretending. The affectation of innocence on Lin Yang's face fell away, replaced by a knowing, amused smile. He looked at Chen Qingqing, her cheeks flaming, her eyes astonishingly bright after her confession, and felt a warmth he had never felt before, a deep, satisfying fulfillment. He'd always found her interesting, singular, and utterly easy to be around. The vague fondness he'd harbored didn't fade when her identity was revealed. If anything, it hardened into something like fate. Of course, it had been her. Any hesitation born of social rank evaporated. The mysterious intelligence system flashed through his mind. In just a few months, leveraging frighteningly precise information asymmetry, he'd moved through global finance, top-tier art auctions, and even shadowy resource trades with ease. His personal assets had quietly crossed the 10 billion mark. He kept a low profile, so it hadn't yet been noticed, but on the true map of capital, Lin Yang was already an entity who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Chen family, perhaps surpass them. The social gap no longer existed for him. That was why he could be utterly natural with Chen Qingqing now. All right, don't get your fur ruffled." He laughed and reached across the table, gently taking her trembling hand. Her fingertips were cool. When his warm palm closed over them, she flinched, then, as if anchoring herself, held on tightly in return. "I'm just teasing you." He stared into her eyes, sincere but with the smugness of someone who'd just sprung a trap. With such a grand display, a handsome me floating in the sky, and this suggestive menu, if I kept playing dumb, wouldn't I be letting Miss Chen's sincere effort go to waste? Chen Qing's heart lurched and then leapt into wild joy. He knew. He'd known all along. He really had been teasing her. You bad man," she managed, equal parts embarrassed and delighted. She tried to pull her hand back to swat him, but Lin Yang held on. "Who told you to keep it from me all this time?" he asked, raising an eyebrow, smile widening. "You don't know. Earlier downstairs I overheard people saying the richest man's daughter confessed, and the lucky guy. I thought, wow, what a spectacle. When she marries, I'll have to go celebrate. Who would have thought the celebratory drink would end up being for me?" Chen Qingqing burst out laughing, tears of relief and joy slipping from the corners of her eyes. Her earlier anxiety and irritation dissolved into something sweet and bright. She gave him a mock glare, but there was no heat in it, only overflowing affection. "So, you agreed?" Her voice trembled, barely audible. Lin Yang let his playfulness fall away and nodded, solemn and steady. "Of course, Miss Chen Qingqing, I am honored to be the male lead in your citywide confession." A chiming note sounded in his mind. Ding. Relationship with intelligence target deepened. Random system function unlocked. Ding. New system function unlocked. Intelligence crucible. Multiple related or seemingly unrelated intelligence entries can be placed into the crucible. The system will consume 5 intelligence experience points for deep analysis, cross-verification, and correlation mining. The result is a synthesized intelligence of higher value, revealing hidden connections or larger conspiracies. The synthesis may far exceed the sum of its parts. The function looked powerful, an analyst's dream. It didn't consume the individual intelligence entries themselves, only a small portion of experience, roughly equivalent to 5 entries. It promised the ability to consolidate scattered facts, see the whole from the fragments, and pull out the gold from the noise. As if echoing that deepening bond, an invisible signal seemed to radiate outward the moment Lin Yang agreed. Outside the window, above May 1st Square, the 5 giant characters, "Lin Yang, I like you," flickered and dispersed like fireworks. Tens of thousands of drones, like a living galaxy, reassembled at dazzling speed under precise programming. In seconds, a new, more romantic image unfolded across the brilliant night sky. The clear outlines of 2 profiles, a man and a woman, rendered in light and shadow, the man's face unmistakably Lin Yang's, the woman's Chen Qingqing's delicate profile. The 2 silhouettes drifted toward each other and under the gaze of the city, gently touched lips. At the same moment, the enormous LED screen in the square switched to the same scene. Pink hearts, sparkling stars, and blooming roses filled the display. A warm, romantic melody swelled through the speakers. Chen Qingqing looked up, stunned into silence. Mortified and elated at once, she clutched his hand so hard her knuckles went white. Lin Yang met her gaze, his smile soft and confident beneath the glow of the citywide spectacle. Around them, the night bloomed into roses and light, and for a beat the entire city watched 2 names become a story. May 1st Square seemed to be swallowed whole by a giant pink bubble, a sweet celebratory haze that made the air taste like sugar. Around the square, people gasped and shouted, "They kissed! They kissed! It worked! How romantic! Ah! I knew it would work! Look at the big screen! Oh my God, this is off the charts!" The square erupted in cheers, screams, and applause louder than before. Phones snapped and streamed the moment from every angle. This was a scene that would be stamped into Xing City's romantic lore. From their privileged VIP table in the restaurant, Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing watched the spectacle through the window, smiling at one another as if the whole show had been staged for them alone. Sweetness hung between them. Chen Qingqing's cheeks were still flushed, her eyes bright and full of contentment. Outside, on the square and online, commentary about the confession of the century reached a fever pitch. A young man holding a phone, live streaming, shouted into his camera, "That's Chen Zhengguo's only daughter. Marrying her is like marrying the whole Runny Group. Tens of billions guaranteed. Only a fool wouldn't go for that kind of money." "Exactly," someone chimed in. It's a meteoric rise. Saves you centuries of struggle. If it were me, I'd say yes too. Curiosity triggered a human search. Who is this Lin Yang? What kind of person gets publicly confessed to by the richest man's daughter? At first, the net dug up an apparently modest past. Found him. A few months ago, he was a technician at a small machinery plant in southern Xing City. His monthly pay was only a few thousand. The comment threads exploded with mockery and envy. A technician? Really? That big a gap? This is a poor boy meeting a real princess. A real-life fairy tale. Unbelievable. Jealous. He's luckier than anyone. Then the tide turned. Someone remembered something else. Wait, Lin Yang. Wasn't he the one who exposed that spy last year? The whole $500,000 spy incident? He got a big bonus for that. Yes, I saw that video. Also, didn't he appear at Hunan University's anniversary? There were photos, standing next to Liang Dingan. A clearer, more consequential photo began to circulate. At the Hunan University Gala, amid dazzling stage lights, Lin Yang stood upright and composed, smiling as he shook hands and chatted with Liang Dingan, the Hunan business magnate. Liang's expression showed casual warmth and respect. The two looked at ease together, no awkwardness of a small timer before a titan. Are you kidding? Laughing with Liang Dingan? Liang Dingan? A young man who stands with him can't be an ordinary technician. Look at his bearing. Definitely not simple. I knew it. Chen Qingqing wouldn't choose some random poor boy. A spy report, a big bonus, and on good terms with Liang. He's not just lucky, he's well-connected. Hidden dragon for sure. Dig deeper. Public opinion reversed overnight. What poor boy? Wrong guess. Lin Yang isn't a nobody. A perfect match. Of course it makes sense. Princesses don't end up with peasants. The Cinderella talk was wishful thinking. Those who said he was a kept man, where are you? Feeling embarrassed? This is reality. Class barriers don't fall overnight. Fairy tales are for bedtime. A short video blogger summed up the U-turn with a smirk for his viewers. See? This is reality. There's no poor boy marries princess fairy tale. Behind all that luck is unseen strength and connections. The so-called class leap? The entry ticket was already in his pocket. We just didn't know. A perfect match makes sense. Stop dreaming. Go wash up and get some sleep. Inside the restaurant, however, Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing paid none of it any mind. Or rather, they simply didn't care. In their world at that moment, there was only the two of them. Lin Yang lightly brushed Chen Qingqing's hand, glancing first at the image of their kiss frozen on the night sky, and then at the face in front of him, more delicate than any flower. He smiled and asked softly, "So, Miss Chen Qingqing, now, can we officially go on a date?" Under the restaurant's soft lights, Chen Qingqing's cheeks still held a delicate flush as she met Lin Yang's intent, gentle gaze, and murmured, Her voice brushed his heart like a feather, sweet, expectant. What followed felt like a private overture for the two of them. They savored fine food and easy conversation. The city's neon and the crowd outside faded into a pleasant soundtrack to their evening. After dinner, Lin Yang took her hand, and like any ordinary couple, they slipped into a nearby upscale cinema. In the dark theater, the screen flickered, but neither of them paid much attention. The warmth of their entwined fingers and the exchanged smiles and stolen glances were the evening's most compelling scene. When the film ended, it was late, but Xing City still hummed. They walked slowly along the riverside promenade. The evening breeze was cool and slightly moist, comfortable and soothing. Lin Yang's broad, warm palm enveloped Chen Qingqing's smaller one, their fingers lacing as if to press the moment into their bones. Streetlights stretched and shortened their shadows. The air was filled with a calm contentment. Chen Qingqing hummed an unformed, happy tune now and then, and Lin Yang turned to watch her, feeling that this ordinary walk was more enchanting than any spectacle. After escorting her to her door and sharing a gentle goodnight kiss, Lin Yang crossed the street and returned to his apartment. Once the door clicked shut, the outside world was sealed away. The gentle smile on his face faded into something more urgent, curious light flickering in his eyes. He had been impatient for this. He stepped into his study and carefully took 2 items from his bag. One was the ancient book, Taoist Guiding Technique, which he'd won at auction. The other was an impossibly thin sheet of paper he'd had Lin Bian arrange to have peeled from a certain page of the book. The paper was like a cicada's wing, nearly transparent and feather-light, yet unexpectedly tough, as if it had been specially treated silk. When held to a lamp, light passed through it, revealing lines and lines of tiny, precise characters. The ink was dark, unfaded by centuries. "The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's treasure," Lin Yang breathed. He steadied himself. Even if he couldn't unlock it right away, knowing where such a vast fortune might be hidden quickened his pulse. It was the final secret of the Taiping forces that once swept across Great Xia, plundering untold treasures. He set the paper flat on his desk, switched his phone to high-resolution shooting mode, and adjusted the light until every minuscule character showed clearly. One click, and the photo was taken. Then he fed the image into professional OCR and ancient text translation software. The AI ran quickly and spat out line after line of transcribed text and a basic translation. Lin Yang's anticipation curdled into confusion and then into serious concern. The recognized phrases were all correct in isolation, classical Chinese mixed with archaic terms, but they made no coherent sense together. Read left to right to left, top to bottom, even diagonally, the sentences jumped disjointedly from Heavenly Father's grace to the river flows swiftly to Stonewall 3 Zhang, never forming a meaningful instruction. It was as if someone had scattered fragments of different documents and pasted them together. "No wonder," Lin Yang muttered, fingers drumming the desk. "They wouldn't let something like this be easily read. It's a deliberate code or a diversion. Even if I have the page, without the key, it's just noise." He tried a few simple keys, permutations, comparisons with rituals in the Taoist manual, but nothing clicked. Minutes slipped by. Only his breathing filled the room. Resolving that trying to brute force it alone was futile, he carefully placed the fragile sheet into a protective, transparent sleeve and slid it into the safe. He glanced at the Taoist guiding technique beside it. If the treasure remained sealed for now, the book itself might still be immediately useful. He remembered Lin Bian's advice: strengthen the body, lengthen the years. He opened the book to the introductory chapter and found several basic guiding postures. With a try-it-and-see attitude, he cleared a little space in his study and followed the diagrams and descriptions. The movements seemed simple, but they required precise coordination of breath and motion. After several cycles, a little over 10 minutes, Lin Yang stopped, astonished. A gentle, warm current seemed to rise through his limbs and joints. The mental buzz from the day's dramatic confession and the slight fatigue from courting Chen Qingqing were brushed away as if by an invisible broom. He felt clearer, lighter, every joint loosened and alive. Incredible. A spark lit his eyes. No wonder those tycoons fought over this book. The effect was immediate and undeniable. He resolved to make the Taoist exercises a regular practice. Treasure could wait. A healthy body and abundant energy were the foundation for everything else. Satisfied, Lin Yang washed up and went to bed. Whether from the Taoist routine or the simple happiness of his good fortune, he slept deeply and dreamlessly. Sunlight slipped through the curtains the next morning. He woke feeling better than he had in months and went to the bathroom mirror. He paused. His eyes were clearer, his skin carried a healthy flush. He seemed to radiate an inner vitality rather than any visible alteration. The change was subtle, a comprehensive lift in spirit and physical energy, as if his body were charged and ready to go. This Taoist technique, it really works. He smiled at his reflection, feeling a light, exhilarated thrill that outshone even the thought of hundreds of millions. At that moment, his phone on the bedside table chimed with a pleasant ringtone. He picked it up. The screen read Liang Dingen. "Good morning, Uncle Liang," Lin Yang answered, voice bright. On the other end came Liang's hearty laugh and warm congratulations. "Ha ha ha, Lin Yang, good morning. I saw last night online, your story's everywhere. Congratulations, you've won a beauty's heart, and she's the brightest pearl in our city. Old man Chen must be over the moon." "Thank you, Uncle Liang," Lin Yang said, his chest warmed by the praise. After some small talk, Liang's tone shifted slightly. It was still relaxed, but Lin Yang noticed a subtle change. "Little Lin, are you free at noon today? It's been a while since we had a proper chat." Lin Yang's mind raced. Liang Dingen was a major figure in Hunan's business circles. His time was precious. A casual lunch invite likely meant something important, perhaps connected to Chen Qingqing's revealed identity and the new circumstances that brought. Of course, if Uncle Liang is free, Lin Yang replied, keeping his voice respectful and composed. You tell me where. Good. Let's meet at 12 at Westlake Restaurant, Jingya Xuan, our usual place. We'll eat and talk. All right, I'll be there on time, Lin Yang said. He ended the call and took a steadying breath. Noon would come soon enough. Westlake Restaurant, Jingya Suite. Lin Yang arrived 10 minutes early. The subtle sandalwood incense in the private room paired with the lake view beyond the window. A waiter led him to his seat with practiced courtesy and set a cup of fragrant tea before him. He sat upright on the Nanmu chair, composed, eyes steady as they took in the shimmering surface of the lake. His mind was alert but calm, quietly waiting for the conversation to begin. A few minutes later, the private room door opened. Liang Dingan strode in, his hearty laugh announcing him before he did. "Ha, Lin Yang. Been waiting long?" "The traffic was terrible," Liang said. Lin Yang rose immediately, giving a warm, measured smile. "Hello, Uncle Liang. I just arrived. I was enjoying the view." He pulled out the main chair for Liang with a small, practiced gesture. Liang sat down and let his gaze linger on Lin Yang for a moment. After last night's citywide confession, the young man before him showed no flamboyance. If anything, he seemed clearer, more composed, an easy confidence in his bearing that was rare in someone so young. Liang nodded internally. The assistant's reports, how Lin Yang had behaved with the Chen family, his unassuming sharpness at the auction, flashed through his mind. Good, Liang said approvingly. He lifted his teacup and, after a sip, openly admired Lin Yang. Last night really added a brilliant chapter to Xing City. Old brother Chen is fortunate, and your future, it's boundless. He sighed, genuine and almost paternal. Watching you grow, your thinking, your ability, and that calm disposition, Uncle Liang likes you more and more. They ate fine dishes from the Westlake Restaurant. The atmosphere warmed with drinks and easy conversation. Then Liang set his chopsticks down, his smile fading into seriousness. He leaned forward, voice lower and steady. Lin Yang, aside from congratulating you, Uncle Liang has a major matter about the future to discuss frankly. Lin Yang set his cup down, sat straighter, and met Liang's gaze with attentive composure. Please, Uncle Liang, I'm listening. A premonition pulsed in him, but he remained unflustered. Liang took a breath. His eyes held anticipation, resolve, and a trace of helplessness. Liangzhou Qiwan Group is the culmination of my life's work, he began. But time spares no one. I must consider a successor. I have no son, only an unpromising nephew. He paused, the disappointment plain. That boy is useless, indulgent, irresponsible, no talent for business. I've tried to pull him up countless times but failed. If I hand this group to him, I'm afraid he'll squander everything in a few years. He might not even be able to support himself. His gaze sharpened and went straight to Lin Yang. Lin Yang, across all of Hunan, among the young people I know, only you combine disposition, ability, and vision. You are the best candidate to inherit Liang's group, perhaps the only candidate. He leaned closer, the weight of an empire in his words. Today, Uncle Liang asks you straight, are you willing to become the heir to Liang's group? A few months earlier, Lin Yang would likely have leapt at the offer. Control of Liang's group meant wealth, status, power beyond most people's dreams. Now, however, his reaction was muted. Last night's confession, what he'd learned of Chen Qingqing's background, his brief encounter with true top-tier magnates at the auction, the disciplined calm from his Taoist guiding art, all of it had lifted him to a different perspective. He had learned a basic truth. Nothing in this world is given without a price. Liang had done him a life-saving kindness by helping find his mother's belongings. That debt had been repaid before. But an inheritance of this magnitude arrived too suddenly, too heavily. It demanded scrutiny. Lin Yang showed no wild joy, no blatant fluctuation. He lowered his lashes briefly, considering, then looked up with steady eyes and a faint, polite smile. He offered no immediate answer. He would wait for the terms. Liang watched the restraint on the young man's face, first surprised, then quietly pleased. He had not misjudged him. Calm in the face of huge temptation, weighing matters carefully instead of being swept away, this was the temperament a helmsman needed. He nodded, an approving glint in his eye, and laid out the conditions with deliberate care. Good. Your composure reassures me. But becoming the heir comes with conditions. This is a responsibility to the group, to my nephew, and to the old brothers who built this company. He counted them off on thick fingers. First, you must join Liang's group from the ground up. No parachuting into a top post. Learn every facet of the company, understand its foundations, and earn the trust of the employees. Second, the group's stability is rooted in long-serving veterans. They may be older or less agile in thinking, but they represent legacy and continuity. After you take over, you cannot remove them arbitrarily, unless there are major principal issues or serious dereliction. Core development plans, especially long-term strategies, cannot be changed on a whim. They require full discussion and a careful transition. Third, and very important, Liang said, his voice hardening, no matter how useless my nephew may be, he's family. I don't expect him to excel, but I insist he lives in dignity. Therefore, every year at least 1% of the group's net profit must be set aside as his fixed dividend. It guarantees his livelihood, but he must never meddle in management. That is the bottom line. Fourth, you would receive most of the shares currently under my name and decision-making power. But for the group's long-term stability, to prevent hostile takeovers or short-term moves harmful to the foundation, the core shares you personally hold cannot be sold for cash within a substantial initial period. We can put that clause in writing. Fifth, Liang continued, to ensure these terms are enforced, I'll engage a top legal team to draft a binding agreement. It will include reasonable restrictions on certain future decisions, major asset disposals, changes to core businesses, and so on, which will require special board authorization or a higher voting threshold. Naturally, these restrictions will relax progressively as your position and credibility in the group strengthen. When he finished, the private room fell briefly silent. Liang's expression was earnest, expectation mixed with insistence. Lin Yang, I know these terms may sound strict, even distrustful, but I must be responsible for the group and everyone who depends on it, and for my nephew. These are safeguards. This is not a small family business. Its legacy cannot afford mistakes. So tell me, are you willing to accept? Will you become Liang's heir? Under Liang's burning gaze, Lin Yang rose slowly. His back was straight as a pine, his eyes bright and steady. The discipline of his training made him project a restrained but powerful aura. He did not hesitate. With a calm, almost detached smile, he spoke clearly, 3 words that landed like a stone in the quiet room. I'm sorry, Uncle Liang. I'm not willing. Liang Dingen's face froze as if he had heard something impossible. Lin Yang's voice was clear and calm, like a stone dropped into a deep pool, breaking the heavy silence in the private room and yet sending a shock through Liang Dingen. I'm sorry, Uncle Liang. I can't accept it. Those 7 words hit Liang Dingen like a hammer. The smile froze on his face. Disbelief replaced the composure he'd worn a moment before. Become the heir to Liang Group? Take charge of a 100 billion empire? That was the kind of fortune people in Qing City and across Hunan dreamed of. He, Liang Dingen, had offered it willingly, and it was refused? The notion overturned everything he'd assumed. For a long beat, the private room hung silent, broken only by the faint ripple of West Lake outside the window. Liang Dingen drew several deep breaths and, trying to steady himself, watched Lin Yang with a look that shifted from stunned to incredulous to a grudging admiration. Lin Yang. His voice had a dryness in it now as he tried to find a reasonable explanation. Do you understand what you're saying? Liang Group is my life's work. You should know what that means across Hunan. Lin Yang stood ramrod straight, composed and unflinching. He met Liang Dingen's gaze without the slightest hesitation. His eyes were clear and bright, and the confidence he radiated felt suddenly very real. Uncle Liang, I understand what Liang Group means, and I appreciate your recognition and kindness, he said evenly. But precisely because I understand, I have to refuse. Why? Liang blurted. He couldn't imagine anything more enticing. Lin Yang gave a small nod, straightforward but firm. The conditions you proposed may seem reasonable, made to protect the group's stability and legacy, but when you look closely, they put the heir on a leash. Starting from the bottom to build credibility is one thing, but core decisions that need an unusually high threshold of board approval, the inability to move veteran executives, strategic plans that can't be changed, key shares locked up for the long term, even a guaranteed cut for your nephew. Together, they don't constitute inheritance. They're a way to hire a highly capable manager who can only follow the script you left. Or put bluntly, a worker in shackles. Liang Dingan opened his mouth to interrupt, but Lin Yang raised a hand to stop him and continued. I understand your burden. You have to be responsible to the company, to the veterans who have been loyal, and to the family name. But that isn't the path I want. He paused, an intensity flashing in his eyes as if he could look past the lake and hills and see farther ahead. I have my own ambitions and plans. I can't accept so many swords of Damocles hanging over me. Autonomy is what matters most to me. The clarity, independence, and self-confidence Lin Yang showed, so far beyond his years, shook Liang Dingan. He swallowed the turmoil and tried again to persuade him. Lin Yang, I admit the terms limit you, but only for a smooth transition. If you accept, you will become the future head of Liang Group. You'll gain resources, connections, and platforms you can't get elsewhere. Liang's 100 billion empire would be your runway. How much time would that save you? How much higher could you rise? Have you thought about how much easier your plans would be with Liang's capital and channels behind you? Why start from scratch and risk the unknown? But Lin Yang's resolve was firm. In his mind, the vast flow of information and the precise predictions from his intelligence system were as solid as a blueprint, his real advantage. Given time and space and that edge, he could not only duplicate Liang Dingan's success, but surpass it. Liang Group's wealth was enormous, but it wasn't the only path, and it wasn't worth surrendering the control he prized. Accepting now would be to handcuff himself. Uncle Liang, Lin Yang said calmly, his voice final. I know what you're offering is tempting, resources, platform, status, but what I want is an empire that's entirely my own, built according to my vision. I want the freedom to decide. Even if it means starting lower and taking a longer road, I'll accept that. Without full autonomy, even the grandest empire is just a gilded cage. I'm grateful for your kindness, but I must refuse. The words landed like a decisive blow. Liang Dingan stared at the young man and finally saw an immovable determination. After a long silence, he sighed, a sound full of complicated emotion, disappointment, respect, and beneath it all, admiration. Good, he said at last, a bitter smile touching his features. An empire of your own, ambitious. He set down the tea and shook his head. Lin Yang, your vision, I have to say you make me feel small. I misjudge things. Your reasons are substantial. He rose and offered his hand. Consider today's meal Uncle Liang's presumption. My respect for you won't change. If you ever need help in the future, ask. As for the heir matter, I'll rethink it. Perhaps we can find a balance. I'll give you my answer later. Lin Yang took his hand and shook it firmly, smiling openly. Thank you, Uncle Liang. Your care means a lot to me. No matter what happens, I'll always respect you. I'll be waiting to hear from you. What could have altered Hunan's business map instead ended in a delicate, unresolved truce. Liang Dingan left in deep thought. Lin Yang walked away having shed a weight, his direction clearer than before. Back at his place in Runhe Bay, he had barely taken his shoes off when the doorbell rang. He couldn't help smiling. He had half expected it. He opened the door to find Chen Qingqing standing there, bright and ready in a casual dress, her hair loose and a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. You're back. Perfect. Come on, let's go. Before he could answer, she grabbed his arm and pulled him along, intimate and natural in the way a couple is. Qingqing, where are we going? He asked with a smile as he let her pull him out. To buy things, she said, turning to him and wrinkling her nose playfully. Aren't we going back to your hometown? It's my first time meeting your uncle and aunt as your girlfriend, so well, you know. Her cheeks flushed and her voice softened with a shy earnestness. I need to prepare some decent gifts. It wouldn't do to show up empty-handed. Come on, help me pick them. Seeing the faint pink on her cheeks and the nervous excitement in her eyes, something warm spread through Lin Yang. The heaviness from the morning dissolved under this simple, warm anticipation. He took her hand gently, his gaze soft. All right, but don't be too nervous. My parents are simple. They'll be happy just to meet you, and it's not the first time you've seen them. No way, she protested, half laughing. Etiquette first. The gifts and the gestures have to be perfect. Let's go. She tugged him along with light, eager steps, as if preparing gifts for his parents were the sweetest adventure rather than a small duty. Xing City's Guojin Center was a shopping paradise filled with luxury brands. Lin Yang stood at the entrance of a flagship store, watching Chen Qingqing flit through the racks like a delighted fawn, already juggling 3 or 4 shopping bags. Sunlight poured through the glass dome above, haloing her in soft light. "How about this one?" she asked, holding up a dark blue bucket hat and pressing it to her chin. "Uncle can wear this when he goes fishing." "My father wouldn't bear to use it," Lin Yang said. Chen Qingqing grinned. "Things are meant to be used once they're bought." She turned to the sales associate. "Please wrap this up and get me the same one in burgundy for Auntie." The male associate took the hat, but lingered with a look that betrayed an extra moment of appraisal. When he faced Lin Yang, his smile went professional and his eyes cooled. "Sir, your girlfriend has excellent taste." A few other male staff shot subtle hostile glances. Lin Yang felt them. Chen Qingqing felt them too. She pinched his arm gently. "It's all your fault," she murmured. "How is that my fault?" Lin Yang feigned innocence. "Because you're handsome," she pouted. "They're jealous." Lin Yang laughed and pinched the tip of her nose. "Or maybe they're jealous because I have such a beautiful girlfriend." They hit several more shops. Each time they entered, female sales associates sized Chen Qingqing up, first admiring her looks and bearing, then growing awkward when they saw her linked with Lin Yang. At Cartier, one saleswoman fussed over a rose gold bracelet. "Miss, your complexion is so fair. This would suit you perfectly." The woman deliberately ignored Lin Yang. Chen Qingqing noticed the slight and leaned in, voice soft and teasing. "Darling, do you think this one looks good?" The saleswoman's smile stiffened. Lin Yang suppressed a laugh and examined the bracelet. "It's lovely, but I think the diamond one would suit my mother's temperament better." "Then buy both," Chen Qingqing declared, turning to the associate. "Please wrap them both up." Jealousy flashed in the saleswoman's eyes as she appraised Lin Yang. Nearly 180 centimeters, broad shoulders and a narrow waist, features carved sharp and precise, deep eyes that seemed to pierce right through people. A well-cut casual suit only added to his composed, effortless presence. "Your boyfriend has great taste," she managed. "Of course," Chen Qingqing said proudly, linking her arm through his. Outside, Lin Yang shook his head. "You did that on purpose." "Humph," she sniffed. "Who told him to look at you like that? My man, only I can look at him." He warmed to the nickname, lowering his head to press a quick kiss to her forehead. "Little sourpuss." They shopped until their arms ached from carrying bags. Lin Yang didn't complain. He enjoyed every minute. Chen Qingqing bought a few pieces of jewelry for Lin's father, but mostly she filled the cart with food, afraid his parents would be too sentimental to use expensive things, and worried the gifts would sit unused. "Enough, enough," Lin Yang said when the trunk of his U8 was stacked high. "Are you trying to empty out the entire mall? Just one more thing." She fished through her list. "Ah, Mutai. Even if Uncle doesn't drink, giving Mutai carries prestige in the village." Before he could argue, she had dragged him into the liquor store. 3 hours later, the trunk was packed to the brim, and the back seat held a few more parcels. Only then did Chen Qingqing smile, satisfied. "Now, let's go meet the future in-laws," she announced, eyes sparkling. The next day, they drove to Phoenix Village in Xiangxi, a small mountain and river hamlet. The setting sun gilded the blue tiles and whitewashed walls. "We're here," Lin Yang said softly. Chen Qingqing's fingers went tense in his. In the Lin family courtyard, Lin's father was trimming flowers and Lin's mother was hanging laundry. They looked up when the car pulled up and brightened at the sight. "Xiaoyang's back," Yang Kaixia cried, then spotted Chen Qingqing and beamed. "Chen Qingqing is here too?" Chen Qingqing blushed and bowed. "Hello, Uncle and Auntie." Lin Yang put an arm around her shoulders. "Mom, Dad, I'd like to introduce Chen Qingqing. She's my girlfriend." For a heartbeat, there was stunned silence. Then their faces lit up with a warmth he'd never seen before. "Oh my, good, good, good," Lin's mother nearly squealed. "Quick, quick, go to town and buy something good." "No, I'll go. I know what Chen Qingqing likes." Come in, Lin's father said, grinning. "It's hot out here. Chen Qingqing, don't be shy. Think of this as your home." Chen Qingqing's nervousness melted away. "Auntie, you don't have to make anything special. I eat everything," she said, voice catching with feeling. How can that be? Lin's mother pulled off her apron and hurried for her coat, already dialing. Although you were here before, this is your first time as Xiaoyang's girlfriend. We must celebrate properly. She called the Zhang family on the way out. Prepare the freshest mandarin fish. Yes, my son brought his daughter-in-law home. Lin Yang smiled helplessly at Chen Qingqing. My mother is like this, overly enthusiastic. I like it, Chen Qingqing whispered, eyes shining. Lin's father helped unload the gifts and stopped short when he saw the trunk. He shook his head in astonishment. This is too extravagant. It's just a little something to show respect, Chen Qing said softly. I know giving presents is important in the village, so I brought some mutai. Lin's father's eyes widened at the sight of a case of Feitian mutai. His hands trembled. This is valuable. By then, Lin's mother's loud voice had already drawn the neighbors out. Phoenix Village wasn't large. News moved faster than wind. A crowd gathered outside the Lin courtyard, murmuring and craning to see. Is that Lin Yang's girlfriend? She looks like someone from TV. Her skin is like snow, and her features are so delicate. She's from the city. No wonder she carries herself differently. Didn't she come here before? They said she wasn't his girlfriend then. Admiration rippled through the crowd. Chen Qingqing blushed but smiled politely at everyone. Then a sharp, judgmental voice cut through. Pretty doesn't fill your stomach, Wang Shen declared, loud enough for the whole crowd. She's visiting, and they send Mom out to buy groceries for her. My son's girlfriend does all the housework when she comes over. The crowd fell into an awkward hush. Wang Shen was the village gossip, her son's industrious girlfriend, a favorite brag. Lin Yang opened his mouth, but Chen Qingqing squeezed his hand and stepped forward instead. Auntie, you're right. I should help. Uncle, where's the kitchen? I'll prepare dinner. Her offers stunned Wang Shen into silence. Lin's father waved his hand. No need, no need. You're our guest. We can't have you working. Chen Qingqing's cheeks flushed. I'm not a guest, she said earnestly. I'm Lin Yang's girlfriend. A cheer rose from the younger villagers. Wang Shen's expression soured. Before she could retort, Zhang Wei, home from college for the summer, pushed through the crowd. Wait, I know her. Zhang Wei stared. She's Chen Qingqing, the daughter of Xing City's richest man. She's the woman from that viral video. Didn't you see? She spent tens of millions on that public confession. That revelation hit like a stone in still water. The villagers erupted. What, the richest man's daughter? How could someone like that come to our small village? Is it true? Zhang Wei pulled up the video on his phone. The clip showed Chen Qingqing and an introduction that mentioned Lin Yang. Founder of Yangshu Capital, only 25, with a net worth over 100 million. Someone read aloud from the caption. Wang Shen's confident face went pale, then several shades red, and she slunk to the back of the crowd. Lin's mother returned at that moment, arms full of bags, and puffed out her chest with pride. My Xiaoyang has always had promise. Of course he'd be worthy of a good girl like Chen Qingqing. Lin's father chuckled. Old woman, enough showing off. Get in and cook. The children must be hungry. Blushing, Chen Qingqing took the vegetables from Lin's mother. Auntie, let me help. Oh, how can I refuse? Lin's mother said, but her smile was wide and proud. Someone in the crowd started clapping. Soon applause and blessings rolled through the assembled villagers, suspicion melting into envy and admiration. Wang Shen squeezed out of the group, shoulders slumped. As she left, someone nearby said, some people are just jealous. Now they've got nothing left to say. Outside Beijing's 5th Ring Road, the summer air hung thick and sticky. Yang Shan sat curled in a corner of the living room sofa, a remote clenched in his hand, eyes blankly fixed on the flicker of light and shadow on the television. From the kitchen came a sharp clang as a spatula struck the stovetop, and then Lili's cold voice sliced through the thin wall between them like sleet. Yang Shan, are you dead? Didn't you see the sinks piled up? Are you waiting for me to serve you? Every day you lie there like a good-for-nothing. Marrying you was 8 lifetimes of bad luck. If it weren't for your decent face back then, who'd have married a penniless man like you? Each word was a poisoned needle, finding the softest spot in Yangshan's chest. He flinched, fingers tightening on the plastic remote until it creaked. 10 years of the same barbs had numbed his ears, but the dull ache beneath that numbness never softened. He rose silently, head bowed, footsteps light as he moved to the kitchen doorway. The sink was indeed full of greasy dishes, silently accusing him. He rolled up his sleeves and turned on the tap. Cold water flowed, and he picked up a dishcloth, wiping on autopilot. Dad, their daughter, Lin Yang, shuffled in on slippers, clutching a large bag of potato chips. She leaned in the doorway, scent of sweet perfume mingling with fried potato oil, and regarded his hunched back with undisguised disdain. "Can you hurry up? You're blocking the way. I want a drink." Her impatience echoed her mother's. Yangshan swallowed back the words that rose in his throat and moved aside without protest. The water gushed, trying to drown out Li Li's relentless complaints that drifted from the living room. He was useless, couldn't make money, made them ashamed in front of relatives, must have been a blind woman who married him. Under the cold, greasy water, his mind slipped back to Phoenix Village in Xiangxi, his old, ramshackle house, the dim oil lamp, his mother bent early with work, his siblings crowded into the tiny room. He hadn't been home in over a decade. He had left to become a live-in son-in-law because the bride price his family couldn't pay had felt like a mountain on his shoulders. He fled without looking back. Shame had become a constant weight. "Aren't we going to Xiangxi in a couple of days?" he asked at last, seizing the brief pause between Lili's tirades. His voice was dry and trembled just slightly. The sound of water seemed to hush for a moment. "Xiangxi? What for?" Lili's head snapped around, her eyes sharp as knives. "What do you want to go and do there?" "It's not." Yangshan's pulse quickened. He forced himself to meet her gaze. "I mean Phoenix Village. I want to visit my mom, my younger brother, my sisters." He trailed off. The rest of the sentence cost him. Lili's response rose, incredulous and contemptuous. "Go back to that godforsaken mountain hole? To those leaky mud houses? Have you lost your mind? I thought you'd finally got sensible, and now you want to run off to that dump? Even a dog kennel is better than that place. It's disgusting. Just looking at it brings bad luck." "Mom, is Dad getting Alzheimer's?" Linana snorted around a mouthful of chips, sneering. "What's there to see? It's broken and poor and smells like dirt. I'm not going. Go by yourself." Slowly, ice crept over Yangshan's chest. He stared at their matching looks of disdain and felt a tide of despair pull at his ankles. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For days afterward, he grew unusually silent. He stopped bringing up Phoenix Village, did the housework in a kind of mechanical way, stared a lot at the gray sky, and retreated into a stubborn numbness. When he did dare to mention it, his voice was tiny and pleading. Li, just a quick visit, okay? It's been more than 10 years. My mom's getting old. Just give me some face," he added, voice almost a whisper, holding a hope he barely let himself name. At first, Li mocked him, called him delusional, but perhaps his quiet insistence and almost desperate steadiness tugged at something in her. Or perhaps she simply wanted him to stop whining. Finally, one evening when he asked again, she waved him off in exasperation, like flicking away a fly. Fine. Stop acting like a woman. If you want to go, go. Look around and then come back. Don't expect me to waste time with your poor relatives. Remember, just a quick look. Don't embarrass me. It's only for your old face." When he heard those last words, something bright and fragile flared in his dim eyes. Gratitude, sorrow, and a small, hard hope. "Yes. Okay. Just a quick visit. I won't delay." He repeated it like a prayer, terrified she'd change her mind. The heat at Biangcheng Airport was a different kind of assault. Thick, humid, the whole place steaming. As soon as they stepped out of the terminal, sweat began to bead on Li's carefully applied makeup. She fanned herself and scowled. "What is this place? It's so hot and sticky. The air smells like dirt." Nana clamped a hand over her nose with exaggerated disgust, waving disdainfully at the taxi with its worn black seat covers and unfamiliar smell. "Don't touch my suitcase. I'll do it myself," she snapped at the driver who offered to help. Yangshan hauled the heavy bags without complaint, sweat cooling on his forehead. His wife and daughter complained and sniffed, but his thoughts were already dozens of kilometers away, racing toward the little mountain village. There was excitement at the idea of going home, and a low, buried unease he couldn't quite name, half hope, half dread. As the taxi pulled away from the city and the buildings thinned into the landscape he had left so long ago. The car pulled away from the airport, and the view beyond the window changed quickly from a semi-modern townscape to rolling hills and green fields. Tsk, mountains everywhere, nothing but poor soil and bad water. It looks depressing. Lily sniffed, pouting as she watched the scenery blur by. No malls, no decent shops. Dad, how did you ever live here? Linana, scrolling her phone, didn't even look up. Yang Shan said nothing. He watched the familiar silhouette of the hills and valleys and felt his hands tighten into fists on his lap. Phoenix Village was getting closer. When the old camphor tree by the village entrance came into view, his heart began to pound. Driver, turn right at the next intersection, into the village, go further in. His voice was tight. The car rattled over the uneven village road and raised a cloud of dust. At a familiar fork, Yangshan told the driver to stop. He pushed the door open and a smell of earth, grass, and livestock drifted in. Before him lay the place he both missed and feared, the few old houses clinging to the mountainside, black-tiled roofs and earthen walls. But what he saw made him stop cold. The house from his memories, battered but always alive, stood utterly silent. The courtyard wall had crumbled, leaving gaps like missing teeth. The wooden door was shut tight, a rusted iron lock hanging on the hasp, the keyhole caked with dust. Spiderwebs trembled beneath the eaves. Weeds had overrun the yard, nearly swallowing the path to the door. It was a picture of neglect. "I told you." Lily's sharp voice sliced the quiet, full of smugness and contempt. "Look at this dump. What did I say? This place is worse than a doghouse. Who could live here? It should have fallen down ages ago. Yangshan, you brought us all the way here for this. Waste of time. Let's go. It smells." She fanned the air theatrically as if trying to ward off a poison. Linana stood a little distance down the road on the cleaner ground, taking pictures and muttering excitedly, "Wow, textbook dilapidated house. This is perfect content for my moments. My dad's ancestral mansion, a grand villa with mountain views, authentic rustic ruin style. Ha ha!" Yangshan didn't move. The sight of the ruined courtyard hit him like cold water, dousing whatever warmth he had held for home. Years of guilt and longing and the raw ache of loss pressed on him so hard it was hard to breathe. Where was his mother? His younger brother? His sisters? A horrible thought crawled into his mind. Were they all gone? He had left long ago, ashamed of the family's poverty. In the capital, he'd been noticed by Li Li and become a live-in son-in-law. More than a decade had passed without contact. He had no idea what had happened to them. "Oh, isn't that Shanwaizi?" A hesitant old voice called from the path. Yang Shan spun around to see his neighbor Wang Day coming down the field track with a hoe over his shoulder, squinting at him in surprise. "Uncle Wang, it's me, Yang Shan." Yang Shan hurried over, desperate, voice shaking. "Uncle Wang, my family, my mother, my siblings, where are they? This house." Wang Day set down his hoe and looked Yang Shan over, then glanced at Lili and her daughter in their city clothes. He sighed. "Ah, Shanwaizi, you finally came back. It's been years. Your mother and the others moved away a long time ago. They went to the county town to live." "Moved away? To the county town?" Yang Shan's world tilted. In his mind, it was barely manageable if his family could scrape by in the village. Moving to the county seat sounded impossible. Wang Day's cloudy eyes shone with a hint of envy. "Just 2 months ago, they moved into the nicest development in the county. What's it called? Longwan Yayuan. That place is fancy, very grand." "The nicest community?" Lili laughed, incredulous. "Old man, what kind of joke is that? Them living in the best neighborhood in the county. Don't be ridiculous." Her face was full of scorn. Li Nana rolled her eyes and chimed in sarcastically. "If they could afford that, then I'm the reincarnation of Empress Wu Zetian. I'll take the throne tomorrow. Want me to Google the housing prices at that best community to shock you, Grandpa?" Wang Day went a bit red under his sunburned skin, but insisted, "I'm not lying. It's the nicest place in the county, Longwan Yayuan. Everyone in the village knows it. Why don't you go see for yourselves?" He picked his hoe back up and, not waiting for them, started off down the path. "Lunatic!" Lili muttered as he left, then spun on the dismayed Yang Shan. Her tone was sharp. "Did you hear him? What are you standing there for? Give it up. You're making a fool of yourself. Let's go." But Yang Shan didn't hear Li Li. Wang Day's words struck him a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples through his chest. Shock and disbelief warred with a tiny, forbidden hope he hadn't allowed himself to feel. His mother, actually in the county town, in the best community? His voice came low but steady. Let's go, to Haijintang. There was a quiet, fierce determination in him he had never felt before. He had to see it with his own eyes, or he would never find peace. Yang Shan, are you ever going to be done? Lily's voice trembled with fury. You actually believe that old fool? Haijintang? Do you even deserve a place like that? Have you lost your mind? On the drive through the county town, Lily had seen billboards and glossy ads for Haijintang from the car window. The community looked well landscaped, with full facilities, definitely not cheap, even in a small county seat. How could Yangshan's family, so poor, possibly afford it? Dad, that's enough. Aren't you ashamed yet? Linana stomped her foot, impatient. We said we'd only take a quick look. Don't hold up the trip. I'm going. Yangshan straightened his shoulders, glaring stubbornly at his wife in a way Lily had never seen before. I'll pay for the taxi. If you're not coming, I'll go alone. Without waiting, he walked to the taxi idling by the curb. Lily's face drained of color with anger. She hauled their daughter into the cab as Yangshan climbed in, muttering under her breath. Fine. Yangshan, if you insist on embarrassing yourself, I'll be here to watch. Today I'll go along with your humiliation and make you give it up. Let's see how you, my poor old husband, would live in Haijintang. Don't you dare cry to me afterward. The taxi rolled toward the county town under a steady stream of complaints and ridicule from the back seat. Over an hour later, it stopped at a grand entrance. The iron gates and tidy plantings of Longwan Yayuan looked more like a resort than a neighborhood. Neat hedges, little decorative gardens, uniformed security guards. Everything whispered a different world compared with the dusty lanes of Phoenix Village. Lily and Linana climbed out. Though their faces were still hard, brief flashes of envy and surprise crossed their eyes. The cleanliness and quiet sophistication here were a far cry from the ordinary neighborhood they normally lived in. Yangshan, by contrast, grew suddenly clammy. His palms were slick with sweat. He followed the building number Wang Day had given him and stood in front of the unit door. He peered at the gleaming intercom and, fumbling, pushed the corresponding doorbell. Ding dong! Ding dong! The bell echoed in the empty corridor. Once, twice, 3 times, silence swallowed each ring. Hope bled away like air from a punctured balloon. Yangshan's chest tightened. Perhaps Wang Day had the wrong number, or maybe nobody was home at all. Ha! I knew it! Lily folded her arms and let out a triumphant sneer. Where are they? Where's Haijintang now? Yangshan, give it up. You look ridiculous. An empty house. This old man was probably senile, or just messing with you. You've humiliated yourself once and for all. Linana crowed from the side. Believe it now, Dad. Still talking about emperors and palaces. You're living in fairy tales. Just then a door down the hall opened. A neatly dressed woman in her 60s poked her head out, curiosity written on her kind face as she took in the trio standing outside. Are you looking for old Mrs. Lin? Yangshan seized the thin thread of hope. Yes, Auntie. I'm her son, Yangshan. We just came back from out of town and wanted to see my mother. Do you know where she went? The neighbor studied him for a beat, then glanced at Lili and their fashionably dressed daughter with their sour expressions. Her face softened into a knowing, gentle smile. Oh, so you're Yangshan. Old Mrs. Lin mentioned you, the son who joined the army? It's been years since you were seen around here. She said it with no malice, only warmth and surprise. Your mother was picked up by her grandson early this morning. He's taken her back to Phoenix Village. Back to Phoenix Village? Yangshan repeated, dazed. Yes, the old lady brightened. Her grandson, that boy Lin Yang, has done very well for himself. Today he's taking his girlfriend home to introduce her to the family, so it was a big day. Old Mrs. Lin was over the moon about it. She put on her best clothes early, and Lin Yang personally came by to fetch her. She went on with mounting enthusiasm. That child is something else, so young and yet so capable. He runs a company in Xing City, made his fortune, heard he has a lot of money. He even tore down the old family house and built a new 3-story Western-style villa on the original site in Phoenix Village. They say the inside is like a palace. And after he made it, he brought his grandmother and his uncle's family into the finest community in the county. Tsk, your old Lin family. You must be proud. Everyone says old Mrs. Lin is the luckiest woman here." Each sentence landed like a thunderclap in Yang Shan's ears. A nephew who ran a company, built a villa, brought the whole family into a top community. This was the same thin boy who'd been in split pants when he left the village. The flood of information left him dizzy and disoriented. He stood rooted to the spot, mouth open, eyes unfocused. "Humph." Linana made a scoffing sound that cut through his reverie. Arms crossed, she lifted her chin. "Old lady, that's ridiculous. From a place like Phoenix Village, someone becomes a big boss driving luxury cars and builds a palace of a villa? You're joking. If he's really that rich, I'll write my name backward today and declare myself empress." Her voice rang loud and harsh in the quiet corridor. The neighbor, taken aback by Linana's bluntness, lost her smile and frowned, annoyed by the girl's rudeness. She glanced sympathetically at Yang Shan, shook her head, and closed the door without another word. "Going back. I'm going back to Phoenix Village," Yang Shan said, then louder, "Go! Back!" His voice cracked on the last word. He didn't look at his wife or daughter. Turning sharply, he headed for the elevator with unsteady steps. He had to see for himself. This news was too big, too disruptive. He needed answers. "Yang Shan, are you crazy?" Lili screamed, trembling with fury. "Still going back to that hovel? Are you possessed? That old woman was making things up to give you an out." "Mom, let's go. We'll go too." Linana suddenly sprang forward, practically bouncing with glee. She grabbed her mother's arm, eyes bright with a mean sort of excitement. "Yes, let's go. I want to see what luxury car this palace nephew supposedly drives. I want to see how he covers up this monstrous lie. When it's exposed, let's see where his face will be. I'm going to record it and post it." She waved her phone like a trophy. Li, her disbelief mingled with a hunger to watch her husband humiliated, felt her stubbornness harden into resolve. She ground her teeth and glared at Yang Shan's rigid back. "Fine, Yang Shan. If you're determined to embarrass yourself, I'll see it through. Let's go." Yang Shan practically stumbled out of the apartment complex and flagged down a taxi at the curb. Li and Linana were reluctant, but their eagerness to see him thoroughly humiliated won out, and they sulked into the back seat. "Sir, to Phoenix Village," Yang Shan said, his voice rough and urgent. The driver was a weathered man in his 40s with a strong local accent. "Phoenix Village is big. Where exactly?" Yang Shan froze. He'd been too rattled upstairs to ask for an exact address. Fumbling for details, he tried to remember what Wang Day and the elderly neighbor had said. "There's a Lin family in Phoenix Village," he offered. "Their son is Lin Yang. He runs a business in Xing City." "The Lin family?" The man slapped the steering wheel, suddenly animated. "Oh, you mean Boss Lin's family. How could I not know them? They're famous all over the county." He made a quick U-turn and began chattering, the pride and envy in his voice impossible to miss. "That Lin's son, Lin Yang, he's like a golden phoenix that flew out of Phoenix Village. Went to a top university, and only a few years after graduating, he's opened a big company in Xing City and made a fortune. Incredible." He glanced in the rearview mirror at Li and Linana, well-dressed but huddled and fuming, and at Yang Shan in the front passenger seat, who looked stricken and small. The driver grew even more animated. "You must be from the city, right? Are you relatives?" "Lucky you. He built a grand villa back home to honor his family. Magnificent. Everyone in the village says it must have cost hundreds of millions. Not an ordinary house, more like a palace." "Hundreds of millions." Li shrieked, sounding as if she'd sat on a pin. She interrupted him with a sneer. "Sir, what kind of joke is that? Building a villa in the countryside for hundreds of millions. Is it made of gold and diamonds? There's got to be a limit to the boasting. A house in the countryside tops out at $1 million or so. Hundreds of millions. You know how much that is? It could bury you." Linana slapped in, sharp and scornful. "And to make hundreds of millions just a few years after graduating? Did he rob a bank or print money? No background, no connections. Give me a break. Your relative's storytelling is terrible. Even this driver is helping him brag. It's hilarious." The driver flushed with embarrassment at the mother and daughter's rapid-fire mockery, but then he laughed and smirked as if to say, "You city folks just don't get it." Fine, don't believe me. A picture's worth 1,000 words. When we get there, you'll see whether old Wang's been bragging. Hang on." He sped up toward Phoenix Village. Li and Li Nana exchanged contemptuous looks in the back seat, already planning to gather plenty of evidence to humiliate Yangshan later. Yangshan pressed his lips together, fingers digging into his palms, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and a faint, stubborn hope. Over an hour later, the car re-entered Phoenix Village. The lane they drove on had clearly been widened and paved. The surface was smooth and clean. As they rounded a familiar bend, the driver pointed ahead and shouted with pride, "Look! See that? That's the Lin family!" All three of them, Li, Nana, and Yang Shan, gasped at the same time. Halfway up the mountainside beside the water stood a striking three-story villa. It wasn't gaudily European so much as a confident, modern design with local Xiangxi elements. Floor-to-ceiling glass reflected the sky. The lines were fluid yet powerful. Dark gray natural stone clad the exterior, understated and solid. Massive terraces stacked outward like layers of the mountain itself, blending into the landscape while radiating restrained luxury. From a distance, the craftsmanship and refusal to spare expense were obvious. This house belonged to a different world than the other newly built, ordinary homes in the village. The taxi stopped at an extraordinarily ornate iron gate. Through the open courtyard gate came the sound of laughter and chatter. What caught everyone's eye most were the two cars parked in the drive, a sleek, futuristic silver-gray M9 and a tall, tough-looking dark green U8, both gleaming in the sunlight, radiating money. Li and Li Nana stared, mouths dropped open. To them, just those two cars were worth more than all the possessions their poor relatives could possibly own. Yangshan stood frozen, looking at a luxury mansion and cars he'd only ever seen in magazines or on television. For a long moment, his mind went blank. A villa like this would be top tier even in the capital. The difference between this and an ordinary country house was like night and day. Li blinked, pinched herself as if to make sure she wasn't dreaming, then grabbed Yangshan as he was about to get out of the car. Her voice was sharp with shock and disbelief. "Yangshan? Are you sure you're at the right place? This kind of house? Those cars. Your poor relatives can't possibly own this. This must be some boss's holiday villa. Come on, let's go. Don't make a fool of yourself." A middle-aged woman in the courtyard, carrying a platter of fruit and dressed in brand-new clothes, happened to glance toward the entrance. Her steps stopped mid-stride. The platter almost slipped from her hands, and her eyes widened as she cried out, stunned, "Shan? Shanzi? Is that Shanzi?" Her voice hit the room like a pause button. The chatter and laughter in the courtyard died instantly. Lin Yang's aunt, who had been speaking with Chen Qingqing, Lin Yang's future granddaughter-in-law, in the living room, along with the other relatives, froze and all turned toward the entrance. When the aunt clearly saw Yangshan standing by the taxi in ordinary clothes, visibly uneasy and shaken, her smile vanished. Her expression became a tangle of shock, heartache, and a hard, unfamiliar distance. She did not speak. Without a sigh, she turned and with unsteady but resolute steps walked into the inner room and slammed the door shut. The bang struck Yangshan like a hammer. Faces around the courtyard darkened. Little Uncle rushed to the doorway, his younger rage bubbling to the surface at the sight of the elder brother who had been out of contact for more than 10 years. His eyes glowed, not with joy, but with the accumulated hurt of a decade. "Yangshan, you show up now? You remember you have a home? 10 years. 10 whole years. You disappeared without a word. Mother cried herself blind thinking you were dead. Why come back now? To make fun of us?" Guilt, shame, and a decade's worth of longing rose in Yangshan like a dam breaking. He could not form an answer. His throat tightened and his body trembled. He shoved away Li, who had been holding him, and stumbled into the courtyard, ignoring the stunned, scrutinizing, and scornful looks from everyone around. He went straight to the inner room's door and dropped to his knees with a thud. His knees struck the polished marble with a dull sound. "Mother, your son has been unfilial. Your son has come back," he cried, voice raw and breaking. His forehead hit the cold floor, and his shoulders shook. Li and Li Nana, startled by his sudden collapse, hurried into the villa courtyard. At first, their eyes were drawn to the two luxury cars parked close by. Then they found their gaze pulled to the living room entrance, where Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing stood, implicated in the sudden commotion. Lin Yang wore a dark, casually cut suit that was impeccably tailored. The cloth had a subtle sheen. On his wrist sat a restrained but obviously valuable watch. He stood tall and composed, an air about him that bespoke long acquaintance with high society, very different from the provincial, nouveau-riche image Li and Li Nana had imagined. Chen Qingqing, arm linked with his, made their shock deepen. She wore a simple, flowing off-white dress that read as top-tier design in fabric. A distinctively cut gem necklace rested at her throat, and a matching diamond bracelet sparkled on her wrist. Her makeup was delicate and perfect, her bearing cool and aristocratic, like a socialite from a fashion magazine. Every piece she wore screamed luxury. The price of any single item would have made Li and Li Nana gasp. When they looked into the villa, the sight made them reel. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a picturesque view. The nearly 7-meter-high living room was vast and flooded with light. The floor was warm, jade-like marble, polished to a mirror sheen. A massive crystal chandelier hung from a domed ceiling, scattering prismatic light. Large abstract paintings adorned the walls. The furniture was sleek Italian design, understated and luxurious. Lush, rare plants softened the corners, and a faint, elegant fragrance lingered in the air. This was not a mere villa. It was an artistic palace where nature and high-end modern design met. Its style and luxury surpassed anything they had seen or heard of in Beijing. Li and Li Nana stood frozen, minds blank, a tidal wave of emotion crashing through them. They looked at Yang Shan, kneeling in humiliation and pain, at the impossibly lavish home, at Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing, who clearly belonged to that world. An absurd, humiliating thought exploded in their heads. My God, this useless husband, father, we've despised for 10 years, actually has a nephew this rich? We've been calling him a worthless loser all this time, and didn't even know he had relatives like this? Shock, regret, and disbelief overwhelmed them. Their heads spun. Li's vision dimmed, and her stomach lurched with remorse. If only they had known. If only they had known sooner. Li's regret lasted only an instant. It was immediately replaced by a stronger, greedier calculation. She had to insert herself into this wealthy branch of the family, right now. Her eyes flicked about, and she fixed her face into an expression of wounded sorrow. Then she lunged to Yang Shan's side, and with a thud, dropped to her knees. In her rush, she even knocked over a decorative flower pot. It crashed to the ground, and she paid it no mind. Mother! Li's voice shot up, edged with contrived sobs, even more plaintive than Yang Shan's. She pinched her own thigh hard until she drew a few forced tears. Please, open the door, old lady. Don't blame Shanzi. Blame me. It's my fault. She slammed her hand down on the cool marble, loud enough to pull every pair of eyes in the courtyard. Yang Shan, stunned by the sudden move, stopped mid-cry and stared blankly at the woman at his side. Li ignored him and pressed on with the performance, every word soaked in feigned suffering. Shanzi didn't want to be away for 10 years, she said, voice breaking in all the right places. He was ashamed to come back. Life in the capital was hard. He scraped by in a rundown house, eating scraps. His health suffered, and the little he earned wasn't even enough for medicine. He didn't want to be a burden. He was terrified of coming home empty-handed and disappointing everyone. Mother, think, if he'd been living well, would he have stayed away for 10 years? He was suffering too ashamed to return. She shoved Li Nana, who still looked stunned by the sight of wealth, forward. Nana, quickly, kneel. Tell your grandmother how hard your father has had it all these years. Pushed, Li Nana snapped into roll. She sank to her knees, forcing a pitiable expression, voice deliberately choked. Grandma, please don't hate Dad. She faltered, wiped at an eye, and forced the rest out. He used to look at pictures of you and cry in the night. He really missed home, but we were so poor we couldn't even afford the fare to come back. He was so ashamed to come empty-handed. Li kept one eye on Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. When she saw their faces stayed calm and unreadable, she felt a flicker of nervousness, but she kept acting. Between her practiced theatrics and the real, raw guilt Yang Shan had carried for years, something in the family swayed. Aunt's eyes reddened. Little Uncle's anger softened into a conflicted pain. They remembered how poor the household had been when the eldest son left. Maybe he had suffered out there too. A weary, resigned sigh drifted from beyond the closed door. For a moment, the courtyard fell into a fragile silence, broken only by Lily's muffled sobs and Linana's sniffing. Then the door eased open. The grandmother hobbled into the doorway, her face streaked with dried tears, exhaustion and sorrow etched in every line. She didn't look at Lili or her daughter. Her gaze went straight to Yang Shan, still kneeling with his forehead to the ground, shoulders shaking. Her lips trembled, and when she finally spoke, the reprimands she had prepared dissolved into a single, aching call. "Shan, Shanzi, my son, you've made your mother miss you so." The brokenness in that voice was like a cleft in steel. Yang Shan folded. He lifted his head, eyes fixed on his mother's tear-streaked face, and whatever restraints he'd held onto for a decade collapsed. He began to cry like a small child. "Mother, I'm unfilial. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry." The grandmother reached out, trembling, to stroke his hair. Lin Yang's mother and little uncle stepped forward at once and helped him up. He was spent with sobs. The courtyard filled with a heavy mix of sorrow, relief, and the fragile easing of long-held pain. Li and Li Nana felt triumph surge through them. As soon as the mood shifted, they scrambled to their feet, wiping their faces as if to erase the earlier misery. Smiles, sickeningly sweet, spread across their faces as they turned their attention to Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing. "Oh my," Li cooed, all honeyed warmth. "See? There can't be any lingering grudges between family. Your grandmother has forgiven Big Uncle. This is wonderful. Truly, truly wonderful. From now on, we're really family." She edged forward as if to take part in the reunion. Li Nana was bolder. Leaning on their supposed cousinship, she darted over, grabbed Lin Yang's arm and pressed close, oozing familiarity. "Cousin, Yang, I'm Nana. We're finally family. I'm so happy. Since this is our first proper meeting, shouldn't my lovely cousin give me a little welcome present? Hey!" Li Nana gripped Lin Yang's arm, her eyes bright with expectation and greed, as if the gift was owed to her. The sudden rush of heavy perfume made him frown. He wasn't used to that kind of purposeful, possessive touch. He tensed to pull away, but Chen Qingqing moved first. Her clear, cool eyes flicked with a blade of sharpness the moment Li Nana latched on, then smoothed into calm. She didn't push Li Nana. She stepped forward, slipped her arm through Lin Yang's other arm with an intimate, effortless gesture, and gently drew him closer. Her gaze rested on Li Nana's hand, holding his arm, carrying a quiet pressure. Startled by her presence, Li Nana loosened her grip. The other relatives in the courtyard, including Yang Shan, who had just been helped up, frowned at Li Nana's brazen demand for a gift immediately after the introduction. Their looks were full of disdain. But as the old saying goes, you don't hit a smiling face. Lin Yang glanced from the eager cousin before him to the affectionate aunt beside her. He saw through the mother and daughter's snobbery and theatrical performance and really had no impression of the so-called uncle. His grandmother had just forgiven that uncle, and the air was delicate. This was not the moment to lose his temper and make things worse. He pursed his thin lips, a mix of helplessness and annoyance on his face, thinking through how to handle it. Chen Qingqing spoke then, her voice clear and pleasant, with a trace of cool detachment. For a first formal meeting, a small token of appreciation is appropriate. She never looked at Li or her daughter's eager faces. She smiled at Lin Yang and calmly opened her small, tasteful handbag, clearly expensive. Her fair, slender fingers rifled through it and came up with something quickly. A small hair clip, shaped in a simple, stylish Ultraman silhouette, made of metal with smooth lines and a delicate matte finish that caught the light discreetly. It looked brand new. She handed it to Li Nana as casually as if passing a tissue. "Here, take it. It's new." Li Nana had been expecting jewelry or something flashier. When she saw only a hair clip, her face fell and disappointment showed. She pouted, about to take it begrudgingly, muttering that it looked cheap. But the moment her fingers touched the cool, textured metal and her eyes caught a tiny, unmistakable brand logo at the end of the clip, she froze. "Ah!" Her short gasp shattered the fragile hush in the courtyard. Staring at the clip, breathless, she cried, This is the limited edition Ultraman hair clip from Mythos?" Her outburst drew everyone's attention. Li Nana's face flushed with excitement as she cradled the little clip like a treasure and babbled incoherently. Mom, look! Mythos, that top-tier trendy brand. The Ultraman series was their official collaboration, only 5,000 pieces worldwide. I've been after this for ages. You can't even get it at domestic counters. Personal shoppers sell them for over 5,000 each. It's always out of stock. Oh my God, it really is it. She bounced on the spot, forgetting decorum, eyes shining. Cousin-in-law, thank you. I love it. I've wanted this forever. Her adoration for Chen Qingqing replaced her earlier disappointment in an instant, as if Chen Qingqing were a saint. The figure over 5,000 detonated through the courtyard. The relatives, including Lin Yang's mother, aunt, and little uncle, all gasped. They knew Lin Yang was well off and that Chen Qingqing came from a good family, but to hand over a limited edition item worth thousands as a casual meeting gift, it dwarfed their expectations and shot their respect and awe to new heights. To them, 5,000 was unthinkable for a hair clip. Lili was stunned too. 5,000 was more than half her monthly salary. She looked from the tiny clip to Chen Qingqing's composed face and felt a surge of flattery and calculation. Someone who could give away something so expensive as if it were a trifle. How wealthy and unbothered must they be? Suddenly, Chen Qingqing and Lin Yang were mountains of gold in her eyes, and her earlier scheming melted into a deeper desire to ingratiate herself. Through it all, Lin Yang remained composed. He watched Li Nana fawn over the 5,000-plus hair clip with an unreadable expression, as if the whole thing were meaningless to him. He didn't need to comment on Chen Qingqing's gesture. It was a small matter, best left unspoken. He felt the light pressure of her arm linked with his, and understood she had smoothed things over and silently registered her disapproval of Lili and her daughter. He turned his head and met Chen Qingqing's eyes. There was a private exchange there, a look of mild helplessness and a grateful, "Thank you for handling that." After the first flush of triumph faded, a hot, ugly anger flared up in Lili's chest. She stared at Chen Qingqing's cool, composed face and remembered the way Chen had plucked a hair clip from her bag and tossed it to Li Nana like a charity handout. Humiliation rose like bile. She looks down on us. She definitely looks down on us. The thought seethed through Lili. This is our first real meeting. What sort of proper relative gives a hair clip? Even if it's gold, it's a trinket. It's a message. Li Nana is only worth this little thing. Is she saying we're not welcome, that after taking this gift, we should slink away? Once she convinced herself of that, Lili shrugged off restraint. Pride? What was the point of pride now? Even a scrap of fortune from Lin Yang would guarantee them a lifetime of comfort. If they had climbed into this family, why worry about gold and silver later? The insult of the hair clip was nothing next to potential wealth. Her smile widened until it looked saccharine and false, the venom in her eyes wiped clean as if it had never existed. "Oh my goodness, Qingqing," she cooed, stepping forward with all the practiced warmth of a woman who knew how to perform gratitude. She rubbed her hands together and leaned toward Chen Qingqing in an exaggerated show of appreciation. "You are so generous, so very generous. I've never seen anything so precious. Li Nana, quickly thank your cousin-in-law. From now on, you must stick close to your cousin-in-law and learn how to carry yourself like that." Chen Qingqing only glanced at her, expression indifferent and steady. The look prickled Lili as if with cold needles and made her hesitate for an instant. But Li Nana, lost in a different kind of delight, didn't notice anything except the hair clip itself. 5,000 yuan, limited edition. Her chest swelled with vanity. She fumbled for her phone, hands shaking, and started snapping pictures of the Ultraman-themed clip, angling for the best light and the clearest shot of the logo. Then she posted it to her Moments with a giddy caption, "Ah, my first mythos. It's the Ultraman co-branded limited edition. Thank you to my beautiful and sweet future cousin-in-law. Feeling pampered, cousin-in-law taste." Her feed erupted. "Mythos? No way, Li Nana. You hit the jackpot. That brand is impossible to get. Global limited edition? Future cousin-in-law? Your brother really found a sugar mommy? Introduce us." "So jealous. That must be worth thousands. Your cousin-in-law is too good to you. Don't forget us when you're rich." The comments poured in like a tide of envy and admiration. Li Nana watched them, dizzy with pleasure, as if she were already seated in that glittering upper-class world. She tamped down her smugness and replied with the practiced casualness of someone playing to an audience. Oh, it's just a little token from my cousin-in-law. She's really so kind, gentle, and elegant. Besides, my brother's family is well off. They live in a big villa, and there are so many cars in the garage that they don't all fit. It's normal for a cousin-in-law to give small gifts. Don't make a fuss. Villa? Luxury cars? How rich is your brother, Linana? You found rich relatives. Lucky. Please let me cling to your leg, Sister Linana. Every flattering comment swelled Linana's sense of being elevated. She kept peeking at Lin Yang with more intensity in her gaze. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing saw it all. Lin Yang's brow creased minutely. A flash of cold went across Chen Qingqing's face. The brazenness of mother and daughter staggered them. The supposed slight implied by the clip was so clear, yet they turned it into social capital. Lin Yang cleared his throat softly. The sound cut through the chatter and an uneasy hush settled over the courtyard. He looked toward his grandmother, unsteady but calmed, and, in an even voice, said, "Grandmother's tired. Big uncle just arrived and is a bit emotional. Let's eat first. We can talk about everything at the dinner table." That put a temporary stop to the skirmish. Li, ever unwilling to concede potential gains, wanted to keep pressing, but she didn't dare oppose Lin Yang's suggestion. She plastered on a smile and agreed loudly. Yes, eat. Yang is right. This is a family reunion. We should eat." The meal that followed was a study in polite dissonance. Yang Shan, rediscovering family ties and feeling guilty toward his mother, found the food tasteless. Grandmother, aunt, and little uncle did their best to keep things civil, but when they looked at Li and Li Nana's unabashed scheming, their faces betrayed worry and thinly veiled contempt. Li hovered over Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing, ladling food on their plates and spouting syrupy compliments. Li Nana chimed in occasionally with cloying cousins and cousin-in-laws, craving closeness that wasn't offered. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing stayed distant and polite, answering only when spoken to. After they finished, Lin Yang turned to Yang Shan and spoke in the same cool, courteous tone. "Big uncle, you've just come back and we weren't prepared for your stay. The house isn't set up to be comfortable for you right now. I've booked rooms at the best hotel in the county. A car is waiting outside to take you there, so you can rest for a couple of days." Polite, but the meaning was unmistakable. "There's no place for you to stay here. Don't linger." Li's smile froze. She was about to insist they could all squeeze in or complain about the expense, but Lin Yang went on without missing a beat, addressing little uncle and aunt. "Little uncle, big aunt, second aunt. Big uncle hasn't been back in over 10 years. You siblings should spend some time with him. I've arranged the hotel. You can escort big uncle's family there and help them settle. Grandmother needs quiet, and I'll take her home later." He'd handed the hospitality off to the others. Little uncle and aunt read his meaning. Though they didn't want to deal with Li and her daughter either, they wanted to spare their mother the turmoil, so they agreed and put on diplomatic smiles. No one could seriously insist on squeezing into Lin Yang's house with so many relatives watching, and Lin Yang had given them an airtight excuse: grandmother's need for rest. Escorted by little uncle and aunt with fixed politeness, Li and Li Nana climbed into the waiting car and were driven to the county hotel. Over the next 2 days, it was as if a curse had fallen over them. They tried every angle to visit Lin Yang's home, on the pretense of checking on grandmother, under invitations to dinner, but little uncle and aunt batted them away with excuses. When they phoned Lin Yang, he was driving or busy with the agricultural company and hung up quickly. They begged to see the company. No one told them where the entrance was. Left with nothing else to do, they bombarded little uncle and aunt with subtle and blunt questions about Lin Yang's wealth and Chen Qingqing's background, hoping to get relatives to speak well of them and, by extension, to pressure Lin Yang into helping. Little uncle and aunt, exasperated, dodged the questions or gave vague responses. Yang Shan, who had wanted to make up for lost time with his family, felt the sting of being used. His wife and daughter no longer cared about reuniting with him. All their conversations circled back to Lin Yang's money. "Old Yang, you're Lin Yang's big uncle. Make more of that connection. Visit his family. Now that he's this successful, we could get a bigger house, a nicer car. Just a little from his pockets would change everything," Li urged. "Dad, Tell cousin to arrange a job for me at his company when I graduate. Easy, good pay. Linana chimed in. Yangshan's chest tightened. He'd returned after 10 years hoping for reconnection, not to be a ticket to wealth. He saw the calculation in his wife and daughter's eyes, remembered Lin Yang's cool distance and his siblings' hesitant faces, and felt a deep, painful sadness. He fell silent, which only drew Li Li's irritated mutter and his daughter's disappointed look. 2 days later, with nothing gained and their original travel plans looming, Li Li and Li Nana suggested they leave. Yangshan was torn, reluctant to leave his mother, disillusioned by his wife and daughter, unsure of what came next. After he and his family were seen off, Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing stood at the doorway and exhaled in unison. For once, Chen Qingqing allowed herself a small, rare smile. Finally, she said softly, some peace and quiet. Lin Yang rubbed his temples. They're relatives, and Grandma has forgiven great uncle. As long as they don't bother us anymore, that's fine. With the troublemakers out of the way, Lin Yang could finally focus on his small goal. The company he was setting up for his parents, Xingyang Agricultural Development Co. Ltd., moved up the agenda. First order of business was recruitment. Lin Yang put up notices around the village and asked the village chief to make an announcement, recruiting 20 long-term workers for daily management and labor at the chili planting base. Requirements: hardworking, planting experience preferred. Excellent benefits: we provide the 5 social insurances and 1 housing fund. The moment the news spread, the whole village erupted. Who was this Lin Yang? He'd come back driving a luxury car. Working for him and getting 5 social insurances and a housing fund, this was a golden rice bowl in the countryside. Families with ties to the Lins, Uncle Wang, Aunt Li, those who had lent money or helped before, walked around with smiles on their faces. Uncle Wang, puffing with pride, told his wife, "Just you wait. Lin Yang's a good kid. Our family will definitely get some of this work." Those who had mocked the Lin family when they were down suddenly regretted it. Zhao Mazi from the East End, who'd often belittled Lin Yang's father, paced at home and lamented, "If only I knew Lin Yang would make it. If I go now, will they even hire me?" Qian Posey from the West End, who loved to spread rumors about the Lins, slapped her thigh in frustration. "What a missed chance. 5 social insurances and a housing fund because of my big mouth." On registration day, the village committee's gate thrummed with people, busier than market day. Villagers young and strong showed up, and word had brought people from neighboring villages. There were only 20 positions, and everyone wanted in. "I've farmed for 30 years. What kind of chili haven't I planted? Pick me. I'm strong. I do hard work. Boss, choose me. Boss Lin, your dad and I are old friends. I even held you when you were little." "That's a lie. When Boss Lin was little, you kept your distance. Now you want to claim friendship?" Competition boiled over. Some began shouting, pushing and shoving, almost coming to blows. The village chief and Lin Yang's father finally stepped in to restore order. Lin Yang stayed away, leaving the task to his father and a project manager he'd hired from the city with agricultural experience. The recruitment criteria were clear. Honesty, a willingness to work hard, and experience were prioritized, with due consideration for villagers who had helped the family in the past. When the final list went up, Uncle Wang, Aunt Li, and a few other well-connected but genuinely hardworking villagers had been chosen. Their faces shone with pride and gratitude. As expected, the sons of Zhao Mazi and Qian Posey were passed over. The 2 families stood outside the crowd, faces pale, watching Uncle Wang and the others celebrate. Their eyes burned with envy and resentment. With staff in place, the dozens of acres turned into a hive of activity. Plowing, ridging, seedling beds, Lin Yang invested in top seeds and organic fertilizer, and operations followed high standards. Watching barren earth turn under, seeing tender green seedlings arranged neatly on black plastic film, Lin Yang felt a rush of anticipation. Family matters were finally being settled, and the company was on the right track. The end of the month approached, and Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing were heading back to Xing City. The U-8 ran smoothly on the highway. Just after they exited and re-entered the urban area, Lin Yang's phone buzzed. Caller ID, Hu Qian. His brows tightened. Hu Qian was one of his most capable aides and the company's chairwoman. steady, efficient, and someone who wouldn't disturb him in his private time unless something major had come up. He answered and switched to the car's hands-free. "Mr. Lin, sorry to bother you." Her voice was clear and calm, but serious. "The Qinghai Salt Lake acquisition has hit a snag. The other party is standing firm. They call the Salt Lake their golden goose, a core, high-quality asset that brings in stable, substantial revenue every year. They're refusing to sell. No matter how high we bid, or if we offer to keep some management rights or dividends, they won't negotiate." Lin Yang's expression hardened. The Qinghai Salt Lake was central to Sinuo Pharmaceuticals' next strategic move. Intelligence indicated that a special trace element in the lake's brine was the key catalyst for Sinuo's new anti-cancer protein. Controlling ownership and mining rights was the only way to secure a stable, large-scale supply and ensure the drug's profitability. This project could not fail. "Reason?" he asked evenly. "The other party believes the Salt Lake's resources are scarce and returns are stable long-term," Hu Qian replied. "Selling would be killing the goose that lays the golden eggs." Lin Yang tapped the steering wheel, a cold light in his eyes. "At all costs, I want the ownership. Money isn't the issue. You decide the method. If necessary, use some unconventional resources. Legality and compliance are the bottom line, but prioritize efficiency." His voice left no room for debate. "Understood, Boss Lin," Hu Qian said, steadier now. "I'll adjust our strategy and move faster. I'll report any developments immediately." The call ended. Silence settled back into the car, heavier than before. Chen Qingqing looked at Lin Yang, wanting to say something but holding back. Far away in the capital, inside a courtyard house tucked deep in a hutong, the setting was unassuming but laden with history. Ancient trees rose high, and the courtyard was quiet and elegant. A neatly dressed, competent-looking middle-aged man stood respectfully by a stone table. Across from him, a handsome young man in a casual suit, the young master, brewed kung fu tea without haste. "Young master," the middle-aged man reported in a low, deferential tone, "news from Qinghai just came in. Yangshu Capital has been aggressively pursuing the core Salt Lake assets from Qingyan Group, but it's going very poorly. Qingyan refuses to sell at any cost. Yangshu's hit a wall and is a bit flustered." The young master curled his lips in a sneer as he poured a cup and brought it to his nose. "Lin Yang." He mouthed the name softly, hatred flashing in his eyes. "That fight with Sinuo Pharmaceutical cost us dearly and humiliated us. Liang Dingan backed him in Hunan and let him slip through the first wave. Does he really think he can keep being so carefree once he leaves Hunan?" He set the cup down and his gaze turned cold and sharp. "Qinghai Salt Lake? It seems very important to him," the young master said, disdain in his voice. "Otherwise he wouldn't be so eager." He looked up, calm but commanding. "Go. Find a way. Get me ownership of that Salt Lake at any cost. If Lin Yang offers some price, add 10%. Tell Qingyang Group they can set the conditions if they want. We'll discuss future profit sharing. If they don't know what's good for them, use other means. I want Lin Yang to learn that when real power moves, his little tricks mean nothing. Outside Hunan, even if he thinks he's a dragon, he'll have to bow to me." "Yes, young master," the middle-aged man replied, bowing as he accepted the order. His heart tightened at the scope of the command. The young master lifted his teacup again and watched the rising steam. His eyes were deep and distant. "Lin Yang," he murmured, draining the slightly cooled tea as if it were fuel for his resolve. "The game has only just begun. You blocked my path to wealth and injured my reputation. Now let's see how you play against me."